We made it. We did it. Huzzah. Hooray. What a time to be alive, man. What a time to be alive. I hope you guys are doing well out there. Glory be and mercy me. I managed to finish a project that I was working on. Doing an audiobook, of course. Trying to pay the bills that way, right? Read some stuff for people. Really seeing, hey Eric, how you doing, bud? Really seeing that I've got to start buckling down a lot more and producing a lot more. I've been doing maybe 2 hours a night of reading. I'm going to have to move it on to probably 4 hours. Try and start producing more stuff. Get more stuff out there, because guys, I worry this isn't coming together, right? Like, it's just not coming together. That's the hard reality about all this, is I'm going to have to start making some decisions about the nature of this channel, whether I'm able to continue doing it every evening, even thinking I might have to move out of the city, might have to move out of the province. That's kind of the hard reality of what's happening in the world. And what's annoying? About all of this? Let's start with the thing everybody's talking about, right? If you haven't seen it, here it is.
Job tonight, Javier Bardem and his wife are both nominated. Now, if she loses, he can't win. He is praying that Will Smith wins. Like, please, Lord. Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? That was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Richard. Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
Wow, dude.
Yes.
It was a G.I. Jane jump.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth.
I'm going to, okay? Okay. That was a greatest night in the history of television. Okay.
And then Will Smith goes on to win Best Actor. Yeah, for his role King Richard. The real award winner should be Chris Rock, if you ask me. I wouldn't keep my composure like that. Somebody comes up and smacks me like that. And of course, people have been analyzing this from a it's all staged perspective, right? Wouldn't be the first time in Hollywood history and Oscar history, right? And what they like to show is Chris Rock's leaning right into it, right? Look at him.
Richard.
He's leaning right into it.
Oh, wow.
No, it's complete. Somebody's trying to convince me right now online that that was just one of many, that Chris Rock has been going after Jada Pinkett Smith, and that she has an autoimmune disease, which is causing hair loss, right? That's what's going on there. And so, and all of that, I look at that and I go, I think this, and it just, there's a couple of things. First of all, this is what wealth does to a person, right? That Will Smith thought that this was, if not an appropriate response, that he feels he could get away with it. And by all accounts he has. He's not going to be charged, right? He did his acceptance speech. He has apologized. And everybody's going to be like, hey, remember that time Will Smith smacked Chris Rock? And that's going to be it, right? That's going to be it. And Like, could anybody, like, if I walked up there and did that, if I somehow was in a movie and and was getting nominated for an Oscar for it, this does happen, right? Right, this does happen, where like some no-name person gets nominated for an Oscar and all this kind of stuff. And if that person walked up on stage and did that, that'd be like, not only would they like they would lose their Oscar, like they would go to jail, right? But someone like Will Smith, he's so entrenched in the system, and he has such a high level of wealth that he feels he can do this kind of thing, right? And nothing serious is going to happen to him, right? I heard someone call the joke ableist. I don't see it. Well, I mean, she does have like an autoimmune situation. Like that's what's causing it. She's not choosing it. I think is the thing, is that it's something that's being in like put on her. And I'm like, yeah, Chris Rock is a comedian. He was doing his job. That's what I always said, right? Yeah, we're gonna go through the slap. It's the thing. And okay, so let's, Lonnie, you're right to bring this up. Like, why? Like, we're so desperate to talk about anything else, like as a people. We're so desperate to talk about literally anything else. Like, please God, something outrageous, and this is like, to comment on it from the cultural standpoint, right? This is how our like culture, insofar as we have a culture, but it is how we operate, right? It's a freak show. You've got to focus on the most outrageous thing. And the only thing that can bounce you off of something outrageous is something that is at least equally outrageous, right? And we're a culture of outrage and outrageousness. That things have to be offensive to some kind of sentimentality, or some kind of, we have to constantly be offending some kind of barrier, or seeking some kind of outrage. And so something like the Ukraine war can only be, we can only deflect our attention from it with something like this. And like, this is outrageous. Like, this is like on the Oscar stage, like an institution that has historically thought of itself as prestigious, as central to the culture, right? Although there's lots of questions about its like what's the point of the Oscars? Like, there's lots of questions about its validity or its relevance, right? Like, and and a moment like this happening at the Oscars, I mean, especially given like the decline of the relevance of the Oscars and how many people pay attention to the Oscars, right? At least it's got people talking about the Oscars again, right? Like people talking, actually paying attention, because like the disconnect that exists between an institution like this and the average citizen is fairly stark. Right? Which we'll be getting into that throughout this, because while we're all focusing on this moment that occurs at the Oscars between, yeah, Will Smith is privileged, he was unhinged, yeah, and the exactly, who cares about the Oscars? People are homeless and starving. 60% of Canadians, 60, not 16, 60, are saying that they're struggling to pay their bills, with something like 25% saying that they're not paying their bills. Like, we're in the midst of an enormous crisis, and yet we get entranced by this kind of nonsense, right? And this expression of it, hey, did you hear a few billionaires had a tiff at their golden statue ceremony they hold every year while the rest of us struggle to afford food and shelter? And you're like, nailing it, right? Nailing it. So getting into like, rising Toronto rent prices are forcing thousands of people to go hungry. As apartment rents in Toronto increase, many people are left with two choices: either leave the city or struggle to pay for the necessities of life. While Toronto rents declined after the first lockdown, more recently the city has seen rents spiked. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment is around $1,900 a month, compared to around $1,800 in 2021. So let's put it into my position, right? Let's put it into, like, let's make it personal for me, right? Last month was the first month since the pandemic started, because I had been getting supports from the government, and because of the nature of how I left, or how my job let me go, I ended up with a little bit of a nest egg. And so I've been able to basically just be like this the whole time. And it's during that period of time that I try to build up this channel, and I'm trying to build up some kind of other income source. Well, those supports are gone now, because that's the nature of it, right? They dismantled this, right? And and so last month was the first month where I've experienced a decline, right? And if I'm experiencing the decline, everybody's experiencing the decline. And while the decline is happening, right, prices are going up, rent's going up. I'm actually below the average in terms of how much rent that I spend, right? And there's no indication that we're going to get any kind of rent control. There's no indication that we're going to get, like, even from the Liberals and the NDP, right? They're so weak and pathetic and gulled by corporate capital. But there's no indication that any of that is actually going to happen. There's no indication that these people are in touch with reality, or even care. Even if they know, they don't care, right? And so if I wanted to downsize and stay in Toronto, I simply can't, right? The average rent for a one bedroom is around $1,900. Well, I spend less than that already. So if I wanted to, so I can't even find like a smaller space. What about renting basements? No, it's the same story, right? I go around and I take a look at the rent and I'm like, no, it's not going to save anything. So now I'm looking at a situation where it's like, well, and of course, leaving the city, farewell to all my friends, farewell to all the contacts I've made here, farewell to any kind of organizing, farewell to any of that, right? Go somewhere else, start again. Story of my life, right? Go somewhere else, start again. Like, this is the reality that the capitalist class doesn't want you to actually talk about or understand. That the displacement of the society and of the working class is part of it, right? Make things so untenable for people that they're constantly shifting and moving. It's a strategy. It's their stated strategy at this point. Like, and we pretend like it's otherwise. And while we're being entranced by, like, oh, did you hear Will Smith did it? Like, literally, I was walking down the street today, and there were people standing talking about it. What were they talking about? They were talking about this. And one lady I overheard was saying, oh, and then Will Smith did the acceptance speech, and he was crying, he was sobbing like a baby. I was like, sounds to me like Will Smith needs some fucking therapy, man. Sounds to me like Will Smith needs to go talk to somebody about this. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is any of that? Like, that's the whole thing is crazy from start to finish. Like, the whole thing is nuts from start to finish. And I think the thing that's, like, the most insane about it is that, like, we watched him physically assault someone on national television. Like, we've got him dead to rights. Like, what do you need? He literally, like, walked up on stage, slapped the guy, and left. Right? Like, it's physical assault. It's an assault charge. Right? Like, but nothing's gonna happen. Like, nothing's gonna happen. And this, to me, speaks to the collapsing veneer of civility, right? The collapsing veneer of civility that exists in our society, that it really is going to steadily become that, like, the politeness, the pretending, right? That's all going to go away, right? The fact that Chris Rock won't press charges against Will Smith should tell you everything about it. It was a scripted event. I wouldn't be surprised to find that out, Zorikin. I wouldn't be surprised. Good to see you, by the way. But good to see you too, Vince, Harry. Good to see you guys. I'm so happy you guys are here. Literally every Monday it loops around, and I'm like, oh, it's been off for 2 days. I'm so sure no one's going to show up. But you always do, and it's always nice. Yeah, I don't know what to think about that. If I found that out, I wouldn't be surprised, is how I'll put it. That I wouldn't be shocked to find out that it was a scripted event. Although, like, to what end is my question, right? To what end? Aren't we all dealing with personal life crises, bud? Aren't we all? Like, my life is a personal life crisis. Yeah, like, I'm sorry to hear that you're going through something tough, bud, but I'm glad to know that when you got a moment, you pop in here. Hopefully we can give you a little bit of just a little bit of peace, a little bit of solidarity, you know, in that moment. My heart goes to you, friend. My heart goes to you. I hope things are tilting in your direction. I hope things are tilted in your direction. And like, a new study finds these rising rents will spell trouble for people simply trying to get by in Toronto. Just a $30 per month increase in rent would lead to an additional 73,776 visits annually to food banks in Toronto, and 375,000 more across Ontario. A new report titled Government Public Policy Drives Number of Food Bank Visits, published by the University of Calgary School of Public Policy, shows. Just $30. Like, that's how on the line we are here. That's how on the line we are here. Like, I'm blown. What blows me away more than anything is how weak the NDP has been. And of course, I'm seeing articles here. The NDP is run by a consultant class geared towards capitulation. Like, when news broke this week of the Liberal NDP agreement, I thought immediately of a remark from last fall by Jennifer Howard, Jagmeet Singh's chief of staff, and one of the PAC's lead negotiators. It was not a campaign that by and large Canadians were interested in major change, she said after the election in September 2021. That was maybe what voters felt the message should be, and we're all going to take the message and do our best to work with it. Not interested in major change. That essentially is the working slogan of today's New Democratic Party. Run by professional operatives whose outlook is closer to operatives in other parties than to Canadians outside the Ottawa bubble, bereft of any coherent opposition plan or a distinct political vision for the country, the party has settled for some abysmally vague concessions from the Liberal government in exchange for propping them up for 3 years. Their unambiguous reasoning goes something like this. If we can get things done, slightly improving policies Liberals might have implemented anyway, we can at least net some recognition for it from the electorate. Never mind that in purely electoral terms, junior partners in such governing arrangements never receive any credit when something of beneficial consequence happens, and receive all the blame when it doesn't. Never mind that polls consistently show that 3 out of 4 Canadians, having watched the pandemic expose ugly truths about social inequality, expect a broad transformation of society, suggesting many are indeed interested in major change, if only there were a political party advocating it to vote for. And never mind that right-wing politicians like Pierre Poilievre are building political momentum by tapping into the anger and discontent with his status quo better than anyone. If this pact results in more of the usual progressive posturing from the Liberals, heel dragging on policies, and little change to the daily realities that see half of Canadians struggling to pay their bills, it will be fuel for a faux populist conservative upsurge. I'm more or less of the opinion that that's the point. Like, the conservatives and the Liberals are allies, right? They work together, and they know what the game is. Like, they know. This idea that they're, like, somehow actually fighting against one another. Like, no, they work together. They pass the ball back and forth. It's the ratchet, right? It's one step forward, 2 steps back. That's how it works. What could the NDP do if they wanted to meet this moment with audacity and ambition? They could relentlessly attack the Liberals as the political agents of a corporate elite, standing in the way of taxes on the rich, major public spending, and a Green New Deal, policies backed by a supermajority across the partisan spectrum. Attempting to realign Canadian voters with a bold, electrifying agenda could raise a boatload of money, as Bernie Sanders has proven is possible, so the party wouldn't be afraid, as they are now, to force an election when necessary. And if Liberals were anxious about a visibly and genuinely progressive alternative, the NDP could extract more from them without signing away their leverage. When the winds of change blow from the left, the Liberals always offer far greater concessions. Instead, the NDP has spent the past few years ideologically conceding ground to the Liberals, rather than opening up the distance between them. Just think of some of Jagmeet Singh's favorite lines. Justin Trudeau says the right things but doesn't follow through, or the New Democrats will get the job done for Canadians. This has made them sound like they are trying merely to be more honest and effective practitioners of their opponents' politics, a kind of taskmaster liberalism. No wonder Justin Trudeau is thrilled. According to a report in the Toronto Star about the negotiations with NDP officials, at one point he even remarked that he was having too much fun. With 22 of the 23 policies outlined in the agreement already being Liberal promises, or modifications or extensions of them, Liberal strategists know the impression left to voters will echo in an old refrain of Prime Minister St. Laurent's: the New Democrats are Liberals in a hurry. The NDP strategy is not being driven by rank-and-file members of the party. It's many progressive parliamentarians, or even particularly by the leaders. Its principal proponents are an advisor clique led by Chief of Staff Howard, a former finance minister in the Manitoba NDP government, the most consciously moderate and centrist among the provincial parties. Its success was based on inoculating itself from attacks from the right and the business sector by simply abandoning any traditional left-wing policies. Howard's guiding lights are U.S. Democrats of the Biden-Clinton current. A paradox is that NDP's recent platforms have, on paper, been the most progressive and social democratic in decades. But these have been pulled together not out of any overarching commitment and conviction, but based on advisors' vague grasp of the growing popularity of insurgent democratic socialist politics elsewhere in the world. Actual advocacy of ideas has remained half-hearted, while promotion of the image of its leader has become increasingly vigorous. The party is stuck promoting a flashy personality, not far-reaching policies. Take as an example how the party brass eagerly promoted an online gaming event between Singh and U.S. Democratic Socialist Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in 2020. But when the party's caucus had been offered a briefing about the Green New Deal to be given by one of AOC's advisors, Howard rejected the idea. Later MP Peter Julian was allowed to campaign for a symbolic Green New Deal bill on the party's margins, a perfect encapsulation of how the party gives lip service to potentially powerful causes, without devoting any real effort to building support or momentum for it. The same unimaginative leadership flip-flopped on a climate change incinerating TMX pipeline. They watched silently as the BC NDP government trampled over the rights of the Wet'suwet'en, and recently they lined up behind the Liberals on the Civil Liberties Infringing and Unnecessary Emergencies Act, which we've just learned was a good faith negotiation gesture. Rudderless, unprincipled, and always missing opportunities, the current pact with the Liberals is the culmination of these politics. How the party got into this state is a story of a multi-decade drift towards the neoliberal consensus. It has involved a transformation, consolidated under former leader Jack Layton, towards highly centralized decision-making, focus-grouped and moderated politics, and fear and wariness about social movements. It has seen the rise of a consultant class, with advisors and operatives moving through a revolving door of organizations like Now Communications that are a vehicle for entrenching this style of campaigning in every province. To pave the way, this layer of operatives have stymied meaningful participation in the party. Stage-managed conventions have hollowed out the party's democracy. Neglect of riding associations has ensured there is little activity or campaigning among members this year around, and any left-wing MPs who show real vision and principle are disciplined or marginalized. A cynical accomplishment of this pact is that the thousands of activists who believe in a different kind of NDP, more democratic, bold, and willing to campaign for a different vision of society, will be further disenchanted and alienated. It will give fodder to those who want to believe, to paraphrase Frederick Jameson, that it is easier to imagine the end of the world than the reinvention of a social democratic party. It can be reinvented, but it will take movement from below and new leadership at the top. Until that happens, the party will be run by a consultant class geared towards capitulation instead of transformation. This is essentially the best analysis of the NDP that I have seen. My summation has always been essentially Jagmeet Singh just wants to be the leader of the NDP. He's not interested in anything other than that. Very, very, very weak. No vision whatsoever. I think he's just like, my mommy and daddy will be proud of me because I'm the leader of the NDP, and that's the extent of it. And you can see how it's having, like, I mean, for goodness sakes, like, here's a story that comes out of 60 Minutes. A Toronto landlord who owns 30,000 houses explains why young people don't want homes.
Gary Berman is CEO of Tricon Residential, a Toronto-based company that has quietly become one of the largest owners of single-family homes in the United States.
So today, we own about 30,000 single-family rental homes across the U.S., largely in the Sun Belt, and we've got probably about 75,000 people living in our homes.
You are a multi-billion-dollar company. You're publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange.
Correct.
And the
Toronto Stock Exchange.
Toronto Stock Exchange. I even read in one of your own documents that your revenue went up last year by 67%. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're expanding. I mean, when you think about it, we have an incredible amount of demand for what we do. So, Leslie, in any given week, we might have 200 or 300 homes available.
For renting.
For renting. And we get about 10,000 leasing inquiries a week.
Tricon is trying to buy 800 houses a month.
I think if you asked a lot of millennials, and that tends to be our primary resident, they would probably tell you that they don't necessarily desire to own a home or to own a car. And they've grown up in the sharing economy, and for what's important to them is lifestyle, right? And so if they can move into this, what we call a turnkey or hotel-ready home, and have a low-maintenance lifestyle, that's very compelling for them. Very compelling.
I'm starting to understand the Mao's position a little bit. Like, these people are parasites. They're adding no value whatsoever to the system. This guy owns 30,000 homes, right? And like, yeah, I loathe they phrase it as sharing economy. Yeah, like, in what universe is it a sharing economy, right? It's a parasitical relationship. Like, it's not. There's no sharing being done whatsoever. Like, a sharing economy would be here's your food and shelter, right? We're sharing it. Yeah, take his house away, make him sleep in a garage for a month. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Congrats on 1K. Dude, hitting 1K has been, like, odd. It feels odd. Like, I feel like the imposter syndrome is real. The imposter syndrome is real, right? And you know, you achieve that goal, right? There's that goal, you hit it, and you think things are going to change, and nothing really has changed for me. Like, it seems pretty much the same. You know, this little button is here now, which I'd like to draw everybody's attention to this little button here, right? Help me pay my rent. Help me pay my rent. Get into the Patreon. Money. It's all about the stupid money, and I hate it. I really, really hate it. Like, sharing economy, but everything's about money. And so, like, in what universe are we living in a sharing economy? Like, it seems that it's this thing that these capitalists like to do, where they take language and invert it to mean its opposite, right? Like we did with literally, and where it now means figuratively, right? Like we don't words don't matter. They don't mean anything. We really need to bring back the CRB immediately. The NDP should have included that. No, they don't. No, of course not. No. Like we're seeing. I mean, we're gonna go through that. What's the? Oh, come on. I had it right in front of my face. Oh, well. Like, I'm seeing reports that are showing a lot of NDP or Liberal MPs don't really see a difference. Oh, yeah, here you go. No difference left between the Liberals and the NDP after confidence and supply agreement, say some Liberal MPs. So a vote for the NDP is a vote for the Liberals. Like, and who thinks that's the case? The Liberals. Right? Like, we're getting, like, our political options are shrinking in this moment. In this moment where we need to be expanding ideas, where things need to be coming more, we need to be having more conversations and more ideas need to be tabled, and we need to come up with better ways of dealing with these multiple crises as our lives become crises. Instead, we're getting a reduction in options, right? And this is becoming like rote. It's becoming normal, right? That we can't actually discuss, like, this guy. Like, are you kidding me? Take his houses and give them to homeless people. Oh, what, that collapsed the housing market? Yes, I don't care. Like, it really is getting to, like, this is how clueless people, like the capitalist class has become, and how clueless the society has become. Is that I say we should do something, and they say, oh, won't it have this result? Not realizing that that's the goal. Like, John, if you raise taxes on the billionaires, they'll leave. And I go, perfect. Like, that's the point. Right? But the point of raising taxes on the wealthy or removing their assets is to be rid of them. They're parasites, right? But we're so clueless and so subservient to these worthless losers whose goal is to impoverish the nation while providing nothing of value whatsoever, acting as worthless middlemen, pretending that's a sharing economy. We're so subservient to these people that we literally can't imagine a society without them ruling over us. Like, we're so gulled. And I genuinely don't know what it's going to take for people to realize that their lives would be better off without people like this in it. Like, a person like this should simply not exist. This should be considered an aberration. This should be considered as loathsome as a psychopathic serial killer. Like, literally, if Jason Voorhees was walking through the streets of your city, you would say, we should do something about that. But if somebody buys up all the property and forces people out onto the streets, normal, completely normal. Oh, you can't do anything about that. That's free market, right? Free market. It's a nice reprieve. Things are tilting back. I'm glad to hear that, bud. I'm glad to hear that. I'm a bit worried that my life is about to tilt in the opposite direction. We'll see. It's the uncertainty. It's the uncertainty that's killing me the most. Like what is next? What is coming next? And it genuinely looks like no one is even attempting to give a shit at all. Like not even attempting. Like literally these guys are like patting themselves on the back because they're like, yeah, $10 a day childcare and teeth cleaning, right? Like that's the things that they're patting themselves on the back for. When like, hey, how about fucking like no homelessness? Like we could do that. It would be easy to do. We're just deciding not to because we don't care. Like, we don't care at all. Jennifer is a lobbyist. NDP is run by the same liberal lobbyists. Yeah. One thing that drives me absolutely up the wall when people disagree with the facts you are presenting, they'll just simply say, those are just an opinion. Yeah, I get that all the time. I get Russian propaganda a lot these days, right? Like, show them the Ottawa Sun article that, hey, we're funding literal neo-Nazis. Like, show them the CTV article, right? And that's just Russian propaganda. It's like literally coming out of our news. Which, just a quick divergence, I have something. So this is actually a series of messages that have come from Wikipedia. That one of the things that's actually really interesting is that the people who, like the key editors of Wikipedia, are actually maintaining the narrative that the Azov Battalion is a neo-Nazi battalion. Part of the Ukrainian military, and the reason why the people on Wikipedia are maintaining it is because it's so well sourced. What's some of the quotes that we're seeing here? Yeah, this article is deliberately and regularly edited with disinformation, describing Azov as extremist and neo-Nazi, guilty of military crimes, with questionable sources as proof. The reply to that: are you claiming the Nation, BBC, FBI, US Congress, and UN Human Rights Office are all questionable sources? You've got conversations going on here. Yours is a typical message of those who want to act on the encyclopedia by carrying a political message. Here we do not have to deal with the war, but with what the reliable sources report. If there are tons of Western sources claiming Azov is neo-Nazi, there's nothing you can do about it. This is not a blog. So, I was I'm not surprised to see that there are people rising to the challenge and rising to try to edit the Wikipedia site to take off the fact that it is a neo-Nazi organization. What is surprising and interesting and worthy of conversation is that it looks as though it's the main editors themselves that are actually keeping that narrative intact. And they're keeping that narrative intact for exactly the reasons that you would hope. Because it's so fucking well sourced. It's undeniable. I love this quote. This is not a blog. Like, reading this actually gave me a little bit of a shining star of just like, oh, Wikipedia. Look at this, Wikipedia. Because if Wikipedia was going to eliminate anything, if it was going to remove any information from its site, it would be the fact that the Azov Battalion is a neo-Nazi organization and that we are supporting and funding a neo-Nazi organization. That would be the first thing that you would expect to see get removed from a site such as Wikipedia. But it's not happening. That people are trying. Like, people are claiming that it's all deliberately. Someone even at one point tries to make the claim that Nazism is not a right-wing ideology, which gets smacked down. right? So it's just something I wanted to bring to the fore, that in the wake of this, there's small news that we can, small little benefits that we can actually take a look at. Nothing from NDP or Jugmeat on Twitter yet coming yet. The fighter jets, right? People getting thrown out onto the streets, inflation destroying everything, all this kind of stuff. But boy, we got to get these 88 new fighter jets, guys. Boy, is this ever crucial. Super crucial. $19 billion for 88 ultra-modern fighters. So crucial while people get thrown into the streets. Like, we're deranged, right? Like, we've lost the thread. Like, we've lost the thread. Our ruling class, like, is as disconnected as, like, let them eat cake. Like, they have lost the capacity to understand what's going on in the real world. Like, we're living in an age of total delusion. Yeah, you just wait till Friday when gas prices spike even further. 30% carbon tax increase will take effect. And this is starting to get people talking more about 4 provinces push ahead with plan to build small nuclear reactors to supply power. I don't know what I think about this. I'm going to put this into the world. Like, I am ready to be convinced one way or the other, and I think that I am going to say that my position is neutral at this stage in the game. That, like, the issue that we're facing as a species, like, the issue that we're facing, and ignoring completely, of course, is that we're spewing carbon into the atmosphere. That it's CO2 emissions is the trouble. And nuclear power could actually resolve that. That we could actually solve the... Now, of course, it creates other problems, but that's fine, right? Like, deal with the problems as they come. But if the problem is CO2 emissions, and nuclear power is going to help resolve that, then it seems to me that we should pursue that, right? Now, of course, this is going to fall for the same traps as all infrastructure projects fall for in the West, which is that the worthless capitalists will get involved in it and collapse the project because they're worthless, right? Because, oh, this isn't going to make me directly money instantly forever, so without doing any work whatsoever, so it's not going to happen. Yep, MPP Randy Hillier charged by Ottawa police in wake of trucker convoy. Yeah, I've got that here. And this is what he's being charged with, by the way. Mischief to property over 5,000, 2 counts. Counseling mischief, 2 counts. Obstructing a public officer, 2 counts. Assaulting a peace officer, 1 count. Obstructing a person aiding a peace officer, 1 count. Counseling an uncommitted indictable offense, 1 count. So, like, literally, like, talking about a protest. Straight up. Like, look at these counts, right? Talking about protesting. That's what these counts are, right? This isn't, it's very, very obvious. And don't get me wrong, like, my politics don't align with Randy Hillier's politics, and I also think that he falls for lots of the rhetoric traps that exist in this era, where you can't say things like bring out the guillotines. You can't say that shit. Like, you can't say that shit. So you gotta keep it all on the DL, right? You gotta keep it all in this kind of tone. But of course, Randy Hillier, he takes to the rhetoric, right? And that's what they're nailing him with here. And, like, all of it is like, so mischief to property over $5,000, 2 counts. Like, that's actually the most serious one here. But the rest of these are like obstructing, counseling. Now, assaulting a peace officer, That could be quite serious. But again, like we're talking about a high level protest. Like, what's the situation here? Right? And these sorts of charges, like, technically you could say that George Floyd was assaulting a peace officer, right? Like, if you want to put that charge on, you can do it. So it's a lot of trumped up charges that no one would actually take too seriously, especially given the circumstances. But because it is it's against the person it's against. And of course, if you're like a liberal, right, you're gonna look at this and be like, "Ha, fuck you, Randy Hillier, ha," and you're like, "Dude, like, this is concerning. Like, what's gonna happen when people are in the streets protesting about the homelessness that's spiking, and about the skyrocketing prices? You can see what's gonna happen to the leadership. You see what's gonna happen, right? It's pretty straightforward." But we're so stupid. Like, we're very, very dumb when it comes to this kind of stuff. I mean, they might as well. The liberals and the Democrats might as well merge, right? Like, they're not really different from one another anymore, right? Like, what's the difference, for real? Like, I mean, again, like the liberals seem to think that the NDP are basically playing ball, right? Like, like, what are we supposed to do about this, right? In my view, it's about, like, joining alternative parties, right? Getting involved. Hopefully, Dimitri Lascaris will actually win for the Greens, right? Here's the vote. Here's the Communist Party of Canada, right? Vote Communist, right? Elizabeth Rowley. We have to start putting energy somewhere, because, like, the NDP have decided which side they'd like to be on, and the side they'd like to be on is the side of abandonment. They're not interested in fighting for people. They're not interested in any of that. They see the wall coming down and they want to be on the correct side of the wall. That's what it is. I'm surprised it's legal for a corporation to buy residential homes to rent. No, because we've never enshrined in any document ever that people have the right to have homes and, like, shelter. Like, that's my biggest complaint, and what I would consider the end goal of all of this is to get enshrined in crucial documents like our Constitution, the Charter of Rights and Freedom, the fact that food and shelter is a basic human right, and people should have access to those things, no questions asked. This idea that we are forced into this wage slave situation where food and shelter are withheld from us unless we turn around and sell ourselves to the people who are with, like, what do you think is happening, right? Like, oh, if people don't get food and shelter, they die. So I'm going to buy all the food and shelter, and then I'll hoard it, and then I'll tell them work for me or else you'll die. Like, that's the arrangement. And anybody who thinks otherwise is just absolutely out of touch with reality in massive ways. Like, massive ways. Like, literally, they think, like, Santa Claus is going to come down at any moment and bestow gifts upon the good children of the earth. Like, that level of hyper delusion. And it's at the core of our society that we simply refuse to acknowledge on a very, very intrinsic and basic level. Like, everybody needs food and shelter. And, like, it is completely possible to resolve this problem, right? China has done it. And China has, like, 1.6 billion people, right? Like, China has, like, literally 10 times the amount of people. Not exactly 10 times the amount of people that we have. But, like Canada has 36 million people. We could resolve this. It would be completely resolvable. We're just choosing not to. We're just deciding not to. Because the society has gone psychotic. Like, we literally are willing to spend more on fighter jets than we than we would spend to like actually resolve this. And I always have to point it out, right? It's cheaper to resolve it. It's cheaper to resolve it. Things like these food banks are expensive, right? Food banks are expensive. Paying for emergency police is expensive. Paying for shelters is expensive. Like, this stuff is expensive. It costs money. You have to pay for people. You have to pay for staff. You have to pay for social workers. You have to pay for people to organize the food. You've got to pay for all of this kind of stuff. And we are, right? And you know who agrees with me on this point? The food banks of Canada. Like, the very people who are doing the work are saying that this is ridiculous. Like, we're spending more than it would cost to actually just provide the food and shelter for the people in the first place. But we don't want to do that because that doesn't help the worthless class of parasites who rely on the denigration of the people in order to get cheap labor. Which is the structure of the piece. Like, these private psychopaths, these people who have completely lost the thread, who genuinely think that the best way to organize a society is to make sure everything is terrible for everyone, that everyone's miserable, that no one's having a good time, that everything is as hard as it can possibly be, and it's just about grind set, bro. Like, what do you think is happening to the society? Like, what do you think? And what we're seeing during this period of time, when we need people to actually stand up and say, hey, this isn't acceptable, like, on like a base, like, reason, like, forget about empathy and compassion. These people don't have it, right? They're not capable of having it. And in fact, if you tell them that they need to find a little bit of empathy, they think you're stupid for it, right? So they don't have it. They're not gonna have it. They think it's weakness, right? But on like a basic, like, hey, do you want to actually make it to the next generation and be successful? Like, do you think the society should actually be stable? Do you actually think that, like, would you like to spend less money? Like, would you like to keep more of your own money? Like, on that base, like, individualistic, selfish, like, libertarian perspective, right? Of just like, I am an island. I live on my own, and I don't care about systems or any of that kind of stuff. This is still absurdly ridiculous, like, grotesquely shitty. And what's becoming really obvious is that the ruling class is willing to say that neoliberal economics doesn't work. Like, Joe Biden has said several times that trickle-down economics doesn't work, but they're still fucking funding it. Right? They haven't actually done anything about this. So it's like it's like someone saying that, like, yes, of course beating my wife is horrible, and then they just beat their wife. Like, so they can say what they like, right? And we just keep voting for it. And now there's like almost no alternative, right? So it's either vote for the psychopaths, which are like the PPC or the conservatives, right? And then you've got the psychopaths who are willing to lie to you about it, right? And that's the liberals and now the NDP. And so what does that leave us with, right? That leaves us with what? The Greens, I guess? But the Greens are basically just like, let's get on board with this neoliberal agenda. So, like, neoliberalism is alive and well, and we're entering its logical conclusion, which is the destruction of the capitalist society and the erection of a feudal state run by an oligarch class. Like, that's what we're doing here, and it's not going to improve. It's not going to suddenly get better. And the only thing that we can actually do, literally, the only thing left is to surround the halls of power and to redraw the Constitution. It's literally the only thing we have left. And we're not going to do it because we're too busy talking about, like, Will Smith slapping Chris Rock and like all of this inane bullshit. And when the famines sweep through, right? Like, the famines are going to be the worst part. I keep saying it. Like, and it's absolutely going to be the case. Like, the famines are going to be the worst part. And the wealthy are just going to retreat to their pedophile islands, right? And their sex islands and just tell us to go get fucked. Keep working, grind set, right? That's what they're going to say to us while the grocery stores are empty. You know, like, this shit is coming for us, and it's observable. Like, it's obvious. Like, you really got to bury your head in the sand to think anything. Well, Lonnie, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thanks so much, Lonnie. That feels really nice, man. That feels really nice. Even $2 counts, man. Even $2 counts. We do want homes, but don't want to spend $250K housing in the U.S. Isn't just a bubble. It's a racket. We have to stop calling it a bubble. It's not a bubble, right? It's not a bubble. Like, a bubble implies that it's going to go and then it's going to pop, right? And that makes sense if you think capitalism still exists, right? But it doesn't. Like, it doesn't. Really, it doesn't. That, like, if we actually stopped subsidizing these psychos, right? We literally subsidize this. Like, that's the most grotesque aspect. But there's nothing free capital. Like, there's no capitalism happening. Like, that is gone. That is out the window. Get rid of that idea completely. There is no, like, this system that we live in, that we are currently living in today, has literally nothing to do with even capitalism, right? It is a neo-feudal system. That is what we are in now. And what would destroy it? What would dismantle it almost immediately? If we stop subsidizing it. If we stop subsidizing it, it would cease to exist, right? But we're subsidizing it. We're keeping it alive. And how are we keeping it alive? Well, the people who used to be the capitalist class, who are now the oligarch class, right? They fund politicians in order to subsidize them. So they literally can't fail, right? Too big to fail is just saying we literally can't fail, right? And why can't they fail? Because they're embedded in the structure of the system itself. And the structure of the system itself guarantees their success. So even when they do actually fail, right, they just get a bailout, give themselves big bonuses, and walk away from it. Like, we've seen it. Over and over again, we've seen it. And they're just going to continue doing that, right? They're not going to act in a different way, right? And why should they? Because the political class is completely going along with it. And why should the political class change its mind? Right? Because they're getting the big bonuses and making big bucks with the billionaire class, right? So it's an enormous scam, it's an enormous grift, and it's all predicated on the idea that we just keep working for this. We just keep going to work and accepting the taxes and accepting this kind of shit, right? No, like no, and at this stage in the game, anything short of full scale revolt is, in my view, childish. Like, just childish. Like, these people are not going to change their mind. We're not going to vote our way out of it. It's simply not going to happen. Like, I feel like when I talk to the populace about this stuff, and when I talk to people, I feel like I'm talking to, like, a battered housewife who literally thinks, like, as long as she just keeps accepting that she's going to get beat up every night, right? As long as she keeps accepting that he can abuse her verbally, like, but he'll change. He's a good person, I promise, right? Like, it's gonna happen. He's gonna turn the corner. No, he's not. Like, no, he's fucking not, right? And, like, the difference between that analogy and what's actually going on is that the guy who's doing the battering can take down the whole fucking town, right? Like, we're literally ceding power to, like, this crazed, and these people are so detached. Like, what's the yeah? So after years of missed targets, liberals table their climate plan this week. Here's a graph of their failure, like, total abject, and we keep voting for it. Like this is the shameful reality. Look how badly we're missing these targets. Like, look how badly we're missing these targets, right? And here's their here's the Pan Canada framework. Look, this is the trajectory, current. So expect that to continue. Like this, what are you talking about? Like this is so stupid. Like, we're not gonna make this. This isn't gonna fucking happen, right? Like, and it's time for people to put two and two together and realize that the Liberals, Conservatives, and NDP, like the neoliberal consensus parties, don't care about solving this. They don't care at all. 0%. They don't care. Even a little. Right? If anything, it's the opposite. It's negative caring. Right? The only thing they care about is convincing you that they care. And how are they doing it? With articles like this from the state from the state media, right? So this is the Liberals and the NDP, right? Going to I mean, we should come up with a better name for them now, right? The LDP, the Liberal Democratic Party, right? Like, they're not new anymore. So, I think I'll probably do that, the LDP. So the LDP are coming together, right? And you're ending up... So the Liberals this week will table their most detailed plan to date for achieving Canada's climate goals, after years of government missing their mark. Canada has never reached any of its own climate targets, said Caroline Brulette, National Policy Manager at Climate Action Network Canada, a coalition of more than 130 groups. This plan is an opportunity to correct this. I'd like to put my own little thing in here. This plan is an opportunity to convince gullible rubes and morons that they're actually interested at all in correcting this, which they're not. Like, let's get over it. They're not interested. 0%. In June 2021, the Liberals passed Canada's Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act. It states, among other things, that the Canadian government must set regular incremental targets on the road to net zero by 2050. So they passed a piece of legislation that said they need to make a plan. So we should make a plan. Like, literally, we're in June 2021, and they haven't even made a plan. Like, let's get real with this. These people are psychopaths. And the only reason they're passing Canada's Net Zero Emission Accountability Act is to convince you, gullible rubes that you are, into thinking, well, they're clearly doing something. They're clearly putting together some kind of plan. No, they're not. They're passing legislation to say we should probably put together a plan maybe at some point, perhaps. Right? And what do you think's going to happen when it comes time to make the plan? Well, we just don't think we can meet this thing with the plan. And by then it'll be 2025. Right? And then the next one will be 2030, 2050. Again, the famines are going to be really bad, guys. Like, the famines are going to be really, really, really bad. Like, stock up. I'm dead serious. Like, I used to be one of these guys that was like, a bit overwrought, survivalist, all this kind of stuff. Stock up now. I have rice. Buy rice. Like, we're going to get completely ramrodded by these guys. And it is like red light flashing crisis. Emergency. And how do you know it's emergency? Because even they're saying it's an emergency. And what are they doing about it? Nothing. They're literally walking up to a house fire and saying, maybe at some point we should perhaps do something perhaps about that fire you think sometimes maybe. What do you think? Yeah, we should probably maybe perhaps think about doing something. What do you think? Yeah? Like, everybody else is like rushing around trying to get water, right? Well, the guys with the fire hose, right, are standing there being like, what do you think? Maybe they should think about doing something? Right? Watching the populace, like, throwing, like, cups of water and everything they can on this raging house fire while they're standing there being like, I don't know, what do you think? How long until we just go up to those guys and say, get the fuck out of here, give us the hose? Right? And why don't they use the hose? Because it would cost them money. That's why. Right? These people should be incarcerated. They should be put in jail for war crimes. Right? What they are doing is criminal. It's absolutely criminal. The burning down of Lytton. The destruction in British Columbia. These people should go to jail. Justin Trudeau should go to jail forever, right? And all of these fossil fuel guys, all of these people who have launched these deception campaigns, all of these hack bullshit liberal and NDPers who are voting for this kind of bullshit should go to prison. The famines are going to be brutal. They're going to be absolutely vicious. And when they come around, you watch the like Nazi level liberal apologencia that comes out of it. Like, unbelievable. The government has agreed already to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40 to 45% by 2030. Yeah, but you can just miss that, right? You can just miss that. Just miss it, like you've missed everything else, right? Yeah, we'll lower it by 40% for sure. Yeah, we're going to lower it by 40%, absolutely. Oh, by the way, we're increasing production 30%. But we'll lower the emissions 40% while increasing production 30%. It is committed to setting further incremental targets in 2035, 40, but again, you can just miss them, right? Nobody cares. Obviously, we keep voting for it, right? We're literally voting for this disaster. Like, that's the part that's so astounding, is that the populace is like, hey, there's a comet coming, right? Look at it. Well, let's just keep voting for the people who are insisting that we can just fucking cause the disaster to occur. Like, at some point, I have to turn to the populace and be like, hey, are you just stupid? Like, are you just fucking stupid? Because it looks like you're just stupid, right? And when the famines come and when your children start starving, right, I'm not going to have sympathy for you. You voted for it, right? You obviously don't give a shit about your own kids, like, clearly. Like, if you're voting Liberal or NDP at this point, you don't give a fuck about your kids. Like, you don't care. Like, you had your kids so that you could pat yourself on the back and be like, I did it. There's my little trophy, right? I got him. Well, get fucked, Junior. Go get fucked. Like, that's what we're saying. Like, we might as well just, like, write him a letter right now and just be like, hey, when you're old enough, just know I did this to spite you because I fucking hate you. Like, that's what we're doing. Like, I don't, like, if we didn't want to do this, we wouldn't do it. Like, that's where it becomes just gross. Like, if we didn't want it to happen, we wouldn't do it. But we're doing it. And we could obviously stand up against it. We could obviously surround the halls of power. We could obviously do this. But we're so stupid and gullible that we keep believing that the guys that missed targets here are sudden. And look, now we're setting, like, targets like here. Because we're literally saying, like, yeah, because we're so fucking worthless and pathetic that we can't hit basic shit, right? Like, now it's going to be like a desperate scramble to even get any basic kind of thing done. And we're just going to plow face first into these massive famines that are coming. It's just unbelievable how stupid we are as a people. Like, as a people. And we keep voting for it. Like, it's idiocracy. And in my view, it's actually worse than idiocracy, right? Like, I feel like the people in idiocracy were probably smarter than us. Like, unbelievable, dude. Canada has had 9 climate plans since 1990 and has failed to hit any of the targets. They'll get this one, though, guys. You watch. These liberals, sure, they failed 9 times in a row. Sure, failure after failure after failure. They'll turn the corner, though. It's coming, guys. It's coming. Absolutely. Just they'll have a come to Jesus moment, right? These overt psychotic pedophiles will 100% have a come to Jesus moment, right? We can't continue to go from failure to failure. We need action and results, not just more targets and plans. The government hopes this weak plan changes that trajectory of failure. Oh my God. A climate plan is a lot like a household budget. No, first of all, no, it isn't. Like, the government is not a fucking household budget. Get the fuck out of here with this. Said lawyer Julia Kroom of Eco Justice, an environmental law charity. If you don't pay attention to the details, you won't achieve your goals. You need a plan. You need to break it all out. What are my expenses? What do I need to achieve? Without that, you're obviously not going to stay in your budget. Climate Action Network Canada said this week's emission plan should set deadlines and show how much Canada's climate commitments will cost, how progress will be measured, how data gaps will be closed, and which ministers are responsible for not achieving goals whatsoever and just missing them and just nothing happens, right? What do opposition parties want? Oh, the Conservatives say they worry the plan could hurt the Canadian economy. Literally like the Earth, comet shooting through the Earth, and a guy standing on the moon just being like, the economy. That's the Conservative position. So, psychotic. Just absolutely bare bones, just break out the Nazis, fucking nightmare psychosis. Huge levels of just enormous psychopathic behavior coming out of this party. Like, literally, not only let's abandon our own children, let's abandon the future of humanity itself. Like, fuck these people. Anybody who votes conservative, period, at this point. Like, I wouldn't trust a person who voted conservative with, like, to take care of my dog one day. Like, nope, absolutely not. Like, I don't want you to fucking do something stupid to my fucking dog. Like, no, get out of here. We've got really tough issues with inflation, gas prices, and other things. The last thing we need is for the net zero plan to result in a job zero plan, right? Just admit that you want slavery, dude. Just say it. Just start saying that, like, yeah, we just want slavery. Like, we certainly don't want people to have an easier time. We certainly don't want to actually have a real sharing economy where we spread resources into the populace, right? We certainly don't want to, like, lower rent or do anything. No, we care about the billionaire class exclusively, and go fuck your kids, right? Literally, by the way. The conservative environment and climate change critic. Oh my God, this is their climate change critic? Like, get fucked. Seaback said Conservatives fear the government will exclude nuclear power and liquefied natural gas from Canada's low-emission plan, citing the Liberals' decision to keep nuclear and LNG out of its green bond purchase program. He said the party also doesn't want to see the price on carbon rise to the equivalent of 11 cents a litre on unleaded gasoline. Like, oh, I can't drive my big truck. My big gas guzzling truck. I can't bet my big gas and like literally these people are just shameful. Like the most shameful people who have ever attempted to seize power in Canada. Like I just cannot express how gross these people are. That and this is how you should talk to kids, by the way. Like, we are abandoning them. We are abandoning children. We are saying to the next generation, get fucked. Get completely fucked. Fuck you. That's what we're saying to them. And when they start complaining about how shitty everything is, we'll just be like, grind set, bro. Dig in. There's 168 hours in the week and you need to work all of those. Right? Like, what? There's something fucking fundamentally wrong with our brains. We have brain rot. In a deep way, where we literally want the worst outcomes for our own children. It's staggering to see. It is always unreasonable for the government to put forward any consultation and act as though Hanukkah, Christmas, and New Year's are not a factor in making it harder for citizens to respond. Like, I think Elizabeth May is getting demented, honestly. Like, I just think she's starting to get demented. Like, anytime she stands up and starts talking, I'm like, what are you fucking talking about, Elizabeth May? The Green Party of Canada said consultations on this plan, which began in December and ended in January, were rushed. It's always unreasonable for the government to put forward any consultation and act as though Hanukkah, Christmas, and New Year's are not a factor in making it harder for citizens to respond. Like, Elizabeth May. Like, no one gives a fuck about this. I'm so fucking upset about all of this, man. Like, we are careening into an enormous crisis that is going to have profound impacts. And our leadership is literally a blackface-wearing haircut who reads cue cards handed to him from the fossil fuel industry and passes the legislation they write. Like, and we're expecting any of this to result in anything other than a total disaster, which is exactly what it's going to be. Like, and it's not going to be close, by the way. Like, we're not going to, like, squeak it in. right? It's not going to be like a movie where we like throw the final basket and it goes in and the buzzer rings, right? We're going to get completely fucking rolled. Like, completely fucking rolled. The universe is more than capable of rolling over us, right? It is more than capable of baking us alive on this planet. It is more than capable of drowning us, right? It is very capable of doing these things. And these shameful lunatics are going to go down in history, should it continue to exist past this point, as like literally the same level of psychosis as Nero with his fiddle as Rome burned. We're going to be telling stories. I'm going to be telling stories about these psychopaths who just like were empty-headed losers trying to do everything they could to destroy the place while pretending like they gave a fuck, right? Those are the stories that I'm going to tell the kids that come up around me. Like, Justin Trudeau is one of the most terrifying figures in Canadian history. Literally just an empty-headed fucking racist who's just going around pretending like he knows what's going on. That's his only skill, right? Just pretending like he knows what's going on, right? Just, don't worry, everyone, we've got it. Don't worry, everyone, we've got it. Don't worry, everyone, we've got it. And then the place lights up. Like, unfucking believable. The NDP, meanwhile, says it wants a transition plan to help workers in Canada's energy sector get ready for an economy that relies less on... Like, they literally don't even have a plan to transition away from fossil fuels, guys. Like, listen to this. Like, listen. We've been talking about this for over 20 years now, and there isn't even the beginning of a plan to actually transition away from fossil fuels in a meaningful way. Like, wow. Like, even as like a contingency, even as like an idea that like maybe we should make a plan, right? Just to have it, right? Just an idea, just a thought, maybe we should draw something up. They don't even have that. Like, we're gonna get nailed by this shit. We need to take into account how we are protecting workers. We're not going to protect workers. Like, we're going to get completely fucked. Ensuring that we support communities most impacted and include Indigenous people in the creation of the plans and implementation. Like, that. So they haven't even started. MP Charlie Angus, the NDP's natural resources critic, called for an immediate cap on oil and gas emissions to 2019 levels. So, like, let's cap it to the level that was already well unacceptable, right? We need to say to the world we are serious, but we're not. Like, we're fucking not. Like, if I was living outside of North America and the West, I would be like, these guys are psychos. Like, they're going to absolutely destroy us. And we are. Like, and we are, right? And the global South nations, right? What are called the global South nations, these are the ones that are going to eat it the hardest, right? The famines are going to hit them the worst, right? Like, there are lots of places that rely on the wheat that comes out of Ukraine, for example. There's lots of places that rely on all this kind of stuff. And what are the stories that we're getting instead? PEI farmers struggle to plan ahead as fertilizer costs double. Like, at what point are we just going to tap out and just be like, fuck it. Let's just double production of gas and oil. Like, fuck it. Let's just go. Right? We're not trying, right? Like, we have no plan. We haven't tried to put together a plan. We're not trying to put together a plan. The best thing we've ever done is to pass a piece of legislation saying we should probably put together a plan. Like, wow. Meanwhile, our towns burn down. And our crucial food infrastructure floods. Like, I really do hate to be the bearer of bad news here, guys. But, like, our leadership is not only demonic and evil, but also incompetent. Like, this goes well beyond, like, I'm trying to find the word. There's got to be a word that encapsulates, like, dark, demonic evil and outrageous, incredible stupidity and incompetence into a single concept and a single idea. Because that is what, not only are we experiencing just like the most callous, despicable disregard for base human survival in life, but we're also seeing that it's just outrageous stupidity at this stage in the game, and no one is actually even attempting to address it, right? Like literally, we've got Charlie Angus, the NDP natural resource critic, who's calling for an immediate cap on oil and gas emissions to a level that's already unacceptable by a wide margin. And guess what? These sorts of calls were being made in 21, like 2001, 2010. They've been saying this shit for 20 years. It's not going to happen, right? Like, it's literally not going to be until major towns burn down, major cities burn down, that we begin to actually put together a plan. Like, buy Kamloops, get fucked, right? Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson said the oil and gas emissions cap that the government is working on won't be announced until after Ottawa finishes consultations, which you can just always consult, right? He said this week's emission plan will still address the sector that accounts for most of Canada's emissions, but they'll like exclude things. That's what they always do, right? They'll put in some kind of a tax or law or all this kind of, and then be like, oh, but the industry that's most responsible for it, that they don't count. The emission reduction plan that Minister Guilbeault will bring forward, and certainly he and I have been working actively and collaboratively together on it, will have projections for each sector, including the oil and gas sector, Wilkinson said. Like, so they'll get that passed by like what, 2030? Like, I don't know why we think that these guys are gonna suddenly like have the like big come to Jesus moment and actually do anything. It's not gonna happen. Like, just 0%. It's just not going to happen. Like, they don't have a plan. Their plan is to make a plan. And they're sitting down and they're saying, well, we can't release details because there's consultations. Like, at what point do you go, oh, you guys are fucking like evil, incompetent psychopaths. Get out of here. Like, you are no longer responsible for the ruling system. But the problem is there's nobody to vote for. So electoral politics is dead. It simply will not work. Like, it doesn't work. It is a failure. It has failed. It can't work. Right? We have no other option. We have to surround the halls of power. Like, if we don't surround the halls of power and begin redrawing our constitution or the charter to include, hey, maybe don't destroy the species. Like, real basic, easy stuff. Real basic, easy stuff. Maybe don't destroy the whole fucking species. Then we're fucked. We're done. Like, just tap out. Just tap out now. And lots of people are. Right? Suicide rate is spiking. Opioid abuse is off the charts. Right? Why? It's not hard to figure out. Like, it really isn't hard to figure this out. Like, our psychopath leaders are just going to burn this place down. And when it burns down, they're just going to shrug and be like, well, I guess we could have tried something. Sorry about that, like, fucking long-form rant, but Jesus Christ. Yeah, gig economy. Get fucked. Gift economy existed thousands of years. People shared resources. The concept of money didn't exist. But before money existed, people would barter and trade thing that Adam Smith believed in simply wasn't true. That's right, yeah. I think Smith was being somewhat intentionally dishonest because he wanted England to transition from feudalism to capitalism, not because he simply didn't know. I don't know if that's the case, but the only understanding of socialism which existed when then was utopian socialism, and people probably wouldn't have been suggesting it on a federal level in the 18th century. Billionaire rent slaver points out how young human beings not interested in having housing. Yeah, no shit. Raise taxes? Nah, anything over X million goes right into a public fund. I mean, my opinion straight up is like, once you have, like, I say 10 million because I think that that's like, reasonable. I think if you have $10 million, you've done well, right? You're good, right? You can basically get anything you need. You can get the house, you can get the car, you can get the thing. Like, sure, you can't shoot yourself to a rocket in space. Sure, you can't fucking like build the mega thing so they have to dismantle a bridge or something, right? But you can get pretty much basically anything you need with $10 million. And then I say, yeah, okay, anything above 10 million, buy. Like, gone. Just straight up. You don't need it. Like, you simply do not need it. Well, John, won't that mean that people leave? Yeah, get fucked. Get out of here. Oh, then I'll stop working. Great. Then someone else will do your job for you and make the money. Like, get fucked. Get out of here. You're not actually participating, right? You're not actually worthwhile. Like, these capitalists are, and you can see it. Like, I don't know what evidence we need at this point. Like, these people are psychos. No one cares. Let chaos reign. Western mainstream media was literally calling those guys neo-Nazis before February 24th. Do these people think we won't notice their sudden change in tune? Yeah. Like, straight up. Yes. Do these people really think we won't notice their sudden change in tune? Yeah. Like, they do think that we won't notice. That's why they do it. Like, as much as I'm railing against like the upper class for its like psychopathic idiocy, like we're not much like we keep voting for it. Like, take a look at the hysteria that seized hold during the Ukraine crisis, right? Like the McCarthyian style censorship sweep that swept through, right? Like, you start presenting people with facts and evidence, you just get called a Russian propagandist. I literally had that happen today. Like, we're not smart. Like, and moreover, we don't even try to be smart. Like, we're not interested in it. Take a look at who our celebrities are. Take a look at who we're supposed to worship and pay attention to. It's fucking morons like Kim Kardashian, whose like big win in the world has been literally releasing a sex tape and having a reality TV show. Right? She wears pretty dresses and has a huge ass. And we're all supposed to be like, whoa, she broke the internet. Like, no one in the world should care about Kim Kardashian to the fucking level that we do. And she's considered like fucking royalty. Like, we are a junk people. Like, I really do start to get into this like this phase of like, maybe we deserve it. Like, maybe the whole idea that the earth is trying to do is it's trying to iterate. It's trying to iterate, right? So it's iterating species, right? So it's creating species, and who knows? Like, we don't know what has happened on this planet. Like, we don't actually research anything. We don't know anything about this place. Not really, right? Like, we're very, very reductive and very, like, we've just begun the concept and the idea that, like, oh, wait, there's like a whole system going on here, right? We don't know what's at the bottom of the ocean. We don't know what's, like, underneath the ice caps. We don't know anything about this place. So for all we know, the Earth has done this before with other species and just been like, not working, wipe it out, right? New one, not working, wipe it out, new one, not working, wipe it out, new one. Like, maybe the next iteration will literally be some like cockroach style creature where finally the cockroaches start to articulate abstract thought to one another. And then they start to, because the goal of this planet as a life form has obviously got to be discovery of itself and then discovery of its surroundings. Right? How do I know that's the case? Because it's what literally everything does. Right? So how is it doing it? It's erecting species that are capable of achieving it. And we're capable of achieving it, but the problem is that we're very stupid. Right? Like, the Earth needs intelligent life to be able to achieve its objectives, and we're not intelligent. Right? We think we are. Like we're very much like the Warhammer 40k orcs, where we're so stupid that we don't realize how stupid we are. Right? Like it's what John Cleese said. right? The problem with stupid people is they don't really realize how stupid they actually are. Well, that's the whole human species. Like, we're so stupid that we don't know how stupid we are. And I would, we would genuinely be better off living like a lifestyle like apes. Just like chilling out, like maybe use some of our ideas to like build a couple of structures to be able to have like shelter and things like in serious kind of ways, right? And like our general ideology and policy should be a policy of no, right? That somebody stands up and says, hey, maybe we should give all the money to the rich guy. No. Hey, maybe we should create this thing that'll spread cancer into the world, but it'll let us look at little screens. Like, okay, maybe not, right? Like we would be better off just reverting back to like an ape style. But instead of that, the Earth's just going to go. I just had a liberal calling me a right-winger because I defend the documentary about Oliver Stone, Ukraine on Fire. Liberals are actually trying to put Oliver Stone as a right-wing hack. Like, isn't this hilarious? Like, it's, you know you're an ideologue when you try to peg someone as an ideologue for telling the truth, right? Like, your worldview is reduced to nothing. You are incapable of understanding basic concepts if you don't understand that that is just a thing that is real. So Oliver Stone standing up and saying like, hey, here is a series of facts, series of events. We've got a lot of footage. We've got a lot of evidence. It's not an ideological position, right? Like the truth doesn't care about your stupid ideology. It doesn't care. Like and if you think that facts adhere to a political ideology, then you're an ideologue. But it's very basic, right? Very, very basic. Under communism, we could have real free markets where you get essentials for free. Yeah, right? Like it's funny because they call it a free market, but nothing's free. She even went so far to say that I'm a pro-Trump supporter, pro-Putin. Yeah, I mean, because, look, liberals get all their politics from Marvel movies, right? Like, Putin is Thanos. That's it. Like, that's as far as they go, right? They're too embarrassed to admit it, and so they say that Putin is Hitler, right? Like, they did the same thing with Trump, right? Trump is Hitler, because their politics is so reduced, like, so reductive, that... And it's reductive because they get it from Marvel movies. Like that's it. That's their entire understanding of politics. They have nothing more, nothing deeper than that. And so Putin has to be the great evil, right? He's got to be the greatest possible evil that's ever existed. He has to be Thanos, right? Because there is no other position in Marvel movies, right? You're either Tony Stark, the hero, even though he's a fucking arms dealer, vigilante, like serial womanizer, like literal alcoholic, hoards his resources, doesn't share his technology with the rest of the fucking world, just hoards it for himself so he can gallivant around like a superhero and pretend like he's like the guy literally invents time travel. Anyway, the like you're either that, right? Oh, sure, he's flawed, but he's trying his best. Right, so you're either that or you're Thanos, and there's just literally nothing in between those two poles, right? In the liberal ethos, so it's just like it's just brain rot at this stage in the game, or like Harry Potter. Like Harry Potter's another one, right? And you see it all over the place, right? They talk this way, they use like amongst each other in their safe spaces, right? If you go into liberal safe spaces, like they talk this way. That there is no space for nuance. There is no space for any of this shit. You're just either Thanos or you're Peter Parker, right? That's it. Yeah, Russia and Ukraine are brothers. They shouldn't be fighting. I agree. Nuke tech, 100% reliant on fossil fuels, which are finite. Move on while we have a choice. Yeah. I mean, it'd be good if we actually put two and two together on this. But I'm more or less of the opinion that the reason why it's not happening is because the next generation of power, like the next iteration of power generation, cannot be metered, right? Like, and the capitalists have always known it. Like, it's all going to be power units built into housing, right? It's like you have an air conditioner, right? It hangs out your window. Well, you'll have solar panels, you'll have wind generation, you'll have like they'll connect it all to this sort of thing, and it's not going to be meterable, right? It's all going to be like independent people actually generating this stuff, likely for their own benefit. So because the capitalists can't insert themselves as worthless middlemen in between the systems, then they just don't happen. Because that's the only time capitalists will actually move forward on anything. Because they're worthless parasites who need to be removed from the system completely. Doesn't matter what energy source we use if people can't even afford the energy. I believe in clean energy. But as society disintegrates, who's going to be alive to benefit? The corporation that sells it. I still can't believe someone accused me of being a right-winger. Yeah, dude. People are going to say what they're going to say. Liberal MP will vote down both basic income bills, and the NDP MP will comply and be happy. Yeah. Hey, Rusty, how you doing, bud? The grind set. People grinding away in hopes of a better life that won't likely materialize. What happens when something is put against a grindstone? Eventually, that something wears away. Yeah. Well, and like, I grinded for years. All I have to show for it, living to paycheck, no access. I hate it when it jumps down like that. That's so fucking annoying. I wish it wouldn't. Thanks, Milton Freeman. Yeah, no shit. And like, we to make it as real as possible, like, we're walking around pretending like we're not temporal, right? Like, we're here on a temporary basis. This is a temporary trip that we're on, right? Like, we're not immortal, and our experience isn't like this linear buildup, like into space or something, right? Like, it's literally not how it works. But we act as though we're like these immortal beings where things will just continue forward forever. And you end up, what you end up with, and I've met these people. I know, like, I've known these people. You end up with a bunch of old people who are at the end of their lives, looking back on their lives, thinking that everything they did was a complete waste, because it was, and they're not prepared to move on. Well, too bad. Right? Life is going to tell you, yeah, get fucked, get out of here. And if all you did your whole life was grind away futilely at this thing that didn't work, right? Because it's designed not to work. Well, what a waste of your own time. Like, you're a temporary being. And I don't understand at all the people who are saying that life should be hard. Like, no. Life should be easy. Like, we should make a universe, and we should make a reality, and we should make a world and a society that is easy. Why are you interested in this suffering? Why are you interested in this idea that, like, yes, life has suffering in it. That's part of the system, right? But that's for life to decide, right? It's a bigger system than we are, and we subserviate ourselves to it because we have to. We don't have a choice. But insofar as we do have choices, and insofar as we can exist, why the fuck would we not want to make a system that is as easy as possible, so people can just go through life having as much pleasure as they possibly can? Like, this is baffling to me. This position that says, like, I remember when I was young, you would start saying, like, oh, hey, like, we've got so many resources, we could, like, provide this kind of, and people literally would say, like, oh, people will just sit around and play video games. And, like, as I've gotten older, I'm like, fuck, so? Like, first of all, probably not. Like, people will want to actually pursue lots of things. Video games would be one of them, I'm sure. And as we've gone farther and farther forward, one of the largest industries in North America right now is fucking video games. And not just playing, like, not just making video games and people play them, but, like, people playing video games for people to watch, right? There are like Twitch streamers and shit where you play video games, right? And this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. All these fucking loser, like horse and buggy brained conservative morons being like, oh, people want to sit around and play video. You mean engage in one of the largest economies that exists on the planet now? Like, what's fucking wrong with your stupid brain? Like, rock and roll's the tool of the devil. That's where they're at. And like, and so, like, oh no, people might enjoy their lives. Oh, holy fuck, guys. Wait a minute. Whoa. Guys, you can't provide food and shelter for people. You can't create a society in which the base financial concerns are actually all taken care of, because then people might actually enjoy their lives and actually start to pursue a purpose and a meaning that goes beyond just meager survivalism, right? Like, that's where I'm at right now. Like like I'm in a place where I have to focus on meager survivalism. And this channel is like a little tiny moment where I get to actually like fight back in an existential sort of way so that I won't go down silently, right? Like, that's what this is all about. Like, I'm not going down quietly. I don't know about the rest of you, right? It seems like the rest of the society is going to go down celebrating the destruction of itself and its prodigy and its children, right? I'm not going to do that. Seems embarrassing, frankly. Seems like something a total fucking moron would do. Like, but as I said before, right? Like, the earth is going to wipe us out because we're a failed experiment. That we're an iteration we're an attempt of the earth to create something so that it could understand and articulate itself and then explore the world around us. And we're close. Like, this iteration is pretty close, actually. Like, the trouble that we have is that we're just too stupid. We just can't do it, right? We have arrogance, which leads to hubris, and we think we're smart, and so we go forward thinking we're smart, and then it just blows up, which is exactly what's going to happen. Like, it's unbelievable to me that instead of saying, hey, maybe we should enjoy this place and create a world that's good, the prevailing ideology is grind set, suffer to death. No. Like, no. It seems psychotic. Like, no. Things should be nice. We should be able to have nice things. Life should be good. People should be calm. We should feel safe. We should feel secure. We should feel as though everything is okay. And we don't need to do that by destroying the place. Like, this is the great, like, we're trying to make a safe place, and we're going to make everything safer by make everyone as hyper violent as possible, right? We will be safer if everyone has explosive weaponry. That'll make us safer. Everyone will be happier if they're starving. We'll be the richest country in the world if everyone's poor. Like, these are the this is what we are saying. This is literally what we're saying these days. Like, you will be happy if you suffer. You will be poor. You will be rich if you're poor. Like, these double think inversion kinds of ways of existing in the world. And what's so annoying about it all, and it's fucking annoying, is that it's all senseless and pointless. It's as stupid as it can get. And how do you know it's as stupid as it can get? There's a society with 1.6 billion people. And they are actually improving things and making life better for their own citizenry, which we can measure. And the citizens of that country actually say that's what they're experiencing every time they're asked. And how are they doing it? By choosing to. By making a plan and choosing to. We have 36 million people in one of the most resource-rich countries on the planet. We're the second largest country on Earth, Canada, and we can't get this shit organized at all. It's an embarrassment. It's a fucking embarrassment. And not only can we not get it organized, there isn't even a single political party that's actually saying we should. Like, we're gonna get completely fucked. And we deserve it. Like, we completely deserve it. It's astounding and staggering the level of that we're gonna get fucked. And we totally deserve it. I worked in churches for 14 years, and 80-hour weeks eventually gave me PSTD. And like, my experience with hierarchical relationships soured me on capitalism, left me looking for alternatives. Like, the point of this system is to burn people out. And people like Jeff Bezos are like the ultimate... the hierarchical relationships is the thing that soured me as well. Yeah, like... The hierarchy, and you ever notice that the hierarchies are always like men are the best? You ever notice? It's always the case. Like, you look at like Confucianism, and Confucianism is literally like a hierarchical caste structure that says like the head of the household is men. It's like it's funny how that works. That talking about our feudal society, I was wondering if you're familiar with the world system theory, or if you're familiar with it, then I actually have a critique of. I don't know that offhand. There's so many. The world system theory emphasizes the world system. I just don't think you can legitimately do this. Like, it's an organizational nightmare. Like, it really is. Like, it's an organizational nightmare, and you can never actually have a system. Like, China can never actually respond to the to what's going on. The United States can never respond to what's going on in Brazil. Like, you can never actually respond in meaningful ways to places that are outside of your sphere, right? Because it's like, we're not smart. Like, this really is, I think, the thing that we've got to really start actually infusing into our consciousnesses. Like, we're not smart. There are things outside of our capabilities. There are things that we can maybe like perceive and like imagine in like, oh, a world system, yeah, where everything kind of works together. It's like a world kind of thing. But like, I can imagine that I can shoot lasers out of my eyes. Doesn't fucking mean anything, right? Like, the legitimate truth of it is that it doesn't matter how well organized you are. It doesn't matter how like large a structure you have and how tightly controlled that structure is. Like, what's going on halfway across the planet, you can't really control or influence, right? And the people who are there will always perceive you as a foreigner, and will always perceive, like, why are you coming over here? Like we genuinely like, if your next door neighbor, if the person who lived next door to you started to say, hey, this is how you should live, and we're going to implement these policies, and this is what we're going to do, you would tell them to fuck off. But we think we can go to another continent, across the ocean, and say, this is what we think you should do, and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's just not going to work. That if there is any, like, world system that should exist, it should literally just be, like, China and Africa being like, well, this is what we're doing. Well, this is what we're doing. Okay. Like, I've got a little bit of like gold. I got a little bit of like cobalt. Oh, okay. And like, that's the extent of it. But we're way too stupid for that. Like, we're way too stupid for that. Like, the American ethos literally is, like, the American ethos literally is, we're so awesome that everyone will love to be like us, and we'll make that happen by force. And anybody who doesn't want to be like us is a Thanos tyrant. Like, that's literally the American ethos. We're going to go into the world and we're going to destroy everything and make it like us because we're the best. Like, ugh. Dude, I'm grumpy today, man. I'm pissed off today. I can feel it. Like, I'm not sleeping well these days. Like, everything's as shitty as it can be. Like the financial thing is collapsing under my feet. I can feel it, right? I'm losing money. Things are in decline, and nobody gives a shit. Like, nobody gives a shit at all. Like, Yanis Varoufakis stance once techno-feudalism is belief that capitalism will die. I mean, yeah, capitalism's already died, right? It's already dead. Like, it's already gone. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that we're subsidizing the old capitalist guard, they'd be gone. Like, really. Like, everything they've done has failed. It hasn't worked. It is all a failure. The only reason it's continuing on in the manner that it is because we're subsidizing it and voting for it. Like, if we actually said, no, this is a free market system and the market will decide and we should do all this stuff, well, these guys would be gone, right? And there would be some other thing going on, right? There'd be some other group of people, right? Which is why they want the system to act for their benefit, which is why they seize the market, which is the inevitable result. First I've heard of the world. The graphics seem like a defense of Jesus' prediction. The poor will be with you always. For the number of times we bailed out Bombardier, Air Canada, all citizens should get a free snowmobile and world traffic tickets. And yeah, like, I mean, at this stage in the game, like, we genuinely would be better off just cutting everybody checks, like erecting a rationing system, making sure that any of the essential work that needs to get done is getting done. Like, we're no, but we're too stupid for this. Like, we're too stupid. The U.S. will become the world's third largest economy by 2055. India is rising fast. The end is near. I mean, I expect that to happen a lot faster than 2055. Like, I actually do. Like, if India has a brain in their head, and they do, like, the ruling class of India isn't stupid. I mean, it's as stupid as the rest of us, but, like, there's a real, like, you got to beat them or join them kind of thing going on with India right now. Like, they're looking at China and they're saying China is threatening. And China is threatening. For sure China is threatening. It's a big giant gorilla. It's a big giant monster that has really grown up fast, right? Like Super Saiyan. Just like, oh, right? And correctly, in my view, India has looked at China and been like, whoa, bear. Like, whoa, buddy. Like, that's very, But China looks as though it's looking out onto the world stage and going like, oh, okay, like, we could trade. And it doesn't look like it's falling for the imperialist traps, and it doesn't look like it's doing that kind of stuff. And part of that is because of the containment, that there is Western containment going on China's borders. So for all we know, without that Western containment, China would have grown up and just started smashing the place, right? Like, definitely possible. But now as it's kind of stabilizing itself and as it's still growing and as it's figuring itself out, I think India is looking at China and basically being like, we could just trade with it. Like, it's big and it's scary, but we could, like, also get big and scary, right? Like, if you're India looking at China, you got to start thinking to yourself, like, there's lessons to learn. Like, I don't see how you can look at China and not think to yourself, we could probably do something like that, right? Don't you think? Don't you think? Like, look, I don't know. Like China literally releases and publishes its 5-year plans. Like, it literally publishes and releases them. And anybody can read these things, right? And what's brilliant about the Chinese 5-year plans is that they also critique themselves. Like, this is part of the brilliance of Marxian theory and the Marxist way of going. Like, this is why Marxism is so crucial and why it's so crucial to actually understand, because Marxism is itself a critique and gives the foundation for people to critique Marxism. or to critique the system that they're in a historical and material way, right? And so you can see them doing it. Like, they've got a 5-year plan, and then the next 5-year plan is a critique of the previous 5-year plan, and then a continuation of the plan with alterations if need be and all of this, right? And they just keep doing it. And you can read them. And if you're a country like India, where you've got a shit ton of poverty, things are not going very well for you, frankly, except you've got this enormous population base. You kind of look over at China and you think to yourself, well, we could do that. Like, what's stopping India? Like, what's stopping India from doing this? Just the same reasons that are stopping North America from doing it, which is just their stupidity. Just straight up, just their calcification. But the difference between India and the United States is India's right fucking there. And India's also got like a big Maoist upsurge happening within its borders. So if the ruling class is not careful, they could experience some kind of Maoist revolution. Giannis was interviewed recently by David Pakman, Social Democrat. Yeah, David Pakman. I'm pretty unimpressed by him. Giannis was basically telling him social democracy is dead now. Yeah, capitalism doesn't have to pretend anymore to care. Yeah, no, social democracies didn't come up because the ruling classes were like, we should do nice things, right? Social democracy came up. Oh, well, thank you so much to whoever donated. Who is this? Is this Major? Thank you for helping me cast away illusions. Prepare for the struggle, bud. Thank you so much, Major. I appreciate that, bud. I appreciate that. That's what we're doing here, bud. We're casting away illusions. And maybe I go too deep, maybe I go too hard sometimes, but like in my life, I have shaken off many delusions, and I have fallen for delusions, and I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm completely not interested in it, and like I live my life for the next generation. That's really what it is. That I'm not like if I can pay my own bills, I'm happy. That's it. Like if I can pay my own bills, that's happy. But everything that I'm doing now is for the next generation, so that they will go into what's happening with eyes wide open, because there's so much fucking bullshit around them right now. Like there's so much fucking bullshit around them right now. And we've got to start being honest. Because if we're not honest, like if we don't show them what's actually happening, then they're just going to plow into it with their eyes closed and they're not going to understand what's going on. Like we can't do that to them. And the reason why we can't do that to them is that they're completely innocent. Like, they don't even exist, many of them. Like, the next generations aren't even here yet. Like, that's the definition of innocence. And we're actively betraying them before they've even got here. Like, yikes. And we can do better than this by a lot. And frankly, what it means, like, if we want to protect the innocent, then we have to confront the evil. And it should be pretty obvious to anyone who the evil is in the society now. Thank you again, Major. I appreciate it, bud. And yeah, social democracy is dead because, like, the only reason social democracies existed in the first place is because there were revolutions happening. Because people were saying, we could just get rid of these capitalists. Oh, we should just do that. Let's just get rid of the capitalists. We don't need them. And so all the capitalists were like, no, you definitely need us. Sure, you can have healthcare. Sure. Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah. Oh, you want things to be easier? Okay, yeah, great. And that's the relationship of the social democracy. And if there aren't revolutions happening, and if there isn't the threat of a revolutionary power going around and actually knocking people over, right? If that's not actually happening, then the capitalists don't need to respond at all. They don't do fuck all, right? It's exactly what we're at. I think it may be faster as the rest of the first world, as well as the third world, turns away from the U.S., causing inevitable systems collapse in the United States. I mean, the United States is definitely facing some kind of economic collapse. Like, I just don't see how you think they're gonna make it through. Like, how even Joe Biden is saying it's gonna get worse, right? Like, this is the thing. Like, sometimes I worry that I'm being too too hard, or that I'm like being too like, but like, my source is the literal president of the United States. Like, what do you need, man? Like, what do you need? Like, I sometimes I worry that my positions are getting a bit fringe. Well, I'm just like, what? Like, can I leave and get refugee status in a socialist country? Dude, I don't know any of that. We need to organize sleeping bags and tents around John Tory's mansion and let him know about a thing called homelessness. Yeah, and then he'll take the cops and beat you up, right? But, like, that is what I'm talking about. Like, we've got to be surrounding these people's houses on like a permanent basis. Like, forget about these homeless people sleeping in the parks. Like, they should be going to John Tory's house. They should be going to fucking Fat Ass McGee's house, whatever his stupid name is. Doug Ford. Fucking Doug Ford. What a loser. For me, having kids is one of the things that got me to question capitalism. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you can't. Like, what world is going to be left behind for them? I'm terrified for my kids. I developed Crohn's disease during my first job and mental illness for my last. I don't want that for them. Yeah. Saw that interview. That is not the argument that Janos was making. He was arguing that social democracy can only occur as long as capitalism exists. Yeah. That's what I meant. Cut off. When Michael Ignatieff was on the 2011 campaign trail in Inuvik running for PM, I asked him what he'd do about the dwindling energy resources. He said that issue was above his paid grade. They got no plan. Like, you're trying to be the leader of the country, right? Like, to me, this is something that I think is indicative of this brand of leadership, if you want to call it leadership, in the Liberal Party, right? That they think being the leader of Canada is like a bit part. And they've convinced themselves of that, when it's like absolutely false. Like, the Prime Minister of Canada has power and can do lots of things, right? Like, but Justin Trudeau is like the epitome of this garbage. They're just like literally, like, I genuinely do think that Justin Trudeau is going to be like 80 and he's going to be like sitting there wondering, like, why did I act that way? Like, why did I do nothing? Like, you think about the regrets that the elderly have, right? And it's really not possible for me to think that, like, Justin Trudeau is going to look back on his tenure as Prime Minister and just be like, there is so much that he could have done. Like, already. He could have done so much already. Like, that's what's so shameful. And for those of you who don't know, like, the Canadian Prime Minister's office has an enormous amount of power. Like, the structure of the system, it was literally, we were ruled by a queen, right? The queen would say, I would like this to occur because I'm the fucking queen. And she would turn to the Prime Minister and say, this is what I want. And the Prime Minister would go, very well, Your Majesty. And he would turn to his party and his people, right? And they would ratify it in the House and then basically just pass it in as policy, right? Well, when we declared our independence from the Queen, that power, the power to be able to say, this is what I would like to see done, you know where that ended up? In the Prime Minister's office. The structure of our system is that we elect a Prime Minister, and that Prime Minister is, in terms of how much power he has, a king. That if Justin Trudeau wanted to nationalize the fossil fuel industry, and start chopping down fossil fuel targets, he could have done that by himself. And the only thing that could have stopped him would be an internal vote of confidence, which wouldn't have happened. Like, we're embarrassing. And Justin Trudeau is the most embarrassing of all. Like, the dumb shit bullshit that this stupid haircut has done. It's unbelievable. Like, because he doesn't care about any of that, right? He just wants to go to brunch. And look at me, I'm the prime minister. I get to put on a funny costume. Ooh. It deals on how capitalism created this global exploitation where you have three kinds of countries: the core world, the semi-peripheries, and the peripheries. Hey, Loaf, how you doing, bud? I mean, that sounds to me just first world, second world, third world, right? Like, and this looks first world, second world, third world, right? Like, it's a bit of a shifting. What here? Yeah. So, like, of course, the white people are the core, right? The whites are the core, right? The semi-periphery are the economies that can't just be ignored, right? Like, that's really the truth, right? It's the countries that whose economies are too robust or too integrated, so they can't just be ignored. And then the peripheries are the economies that they either can afford to ignore or they want to ignore, right? And I mean, Russia's economy is not great. I just listened to here, let's quickly, here, you know what? I'm going to do this first, and then we're going to do this. I'm going to ram down this list, because I do have a little bit of Ukraine news. A little. Can our bread cult worship in a huge crouton? Oh, great and powerful crouton, eternal in your breadliness, may your dryness fill our lives with... I don't know how to finish that. Oh, great and powerful crouton. That's hilarious. I think capitalism has evolved into something where it does not need to pretend to care about people anymore. I mean, that's what capitalism does. I mean, what do you think fascism was? Like, it's what it does. It doesn't like this is something that I keep pointing out to people, is that, like, if you're like a black person or a First Nations person, I don't think you make a distinction between capitalism and fascism. Like, the distinction that was created between fascism and capitalism was created by the capitalists in order to defend capitalism from people who are pointing out, like, hey, look at what capitalism generated, right? Capitalism generated Mussolini and Hitler and all those guys, right? Capitalism did that. And if you actually analyze, like, Hitler and his policies and all this, like, America was doing that shit forever ago, right? Like, the Nazis literally got, like, I forget what it's called, the Laberstrom or whatever, but it is Manifest Destiny, right? And, like, the Hitlerian Germans were just attempting to do what the Americans had already succeeded at, right? Like, the Americans had successfully ethnically cleansed their society of First Nations people. The indigenous population, the Aboriginal population, was ethnically cleansed systemically, right? Do you think they care if they called themselves capitalists or fascists? Like, this distinction that was created post World War II or during World War II, that there is somehow a difference between fascism and capitalism, is the capitalists attempting to defend capitalism and be like, oh, those are bad people. They're fascists. They're different than us. We'll put a line here and say, those are evil fascists. They're not also capitalists, which they are, right? Like, anybody who's been the victim of this, right? Like, do you think that the people who George Washington enslaved and destroyed would be like, oh, well, thank God he was a capitalist and not a fascist, right? Like, the distinction to me seems very specifically academic. And moreover, anytime I actually read anybody writing about fascism, like what's the rise of fascism, they begin with the assumption that these two things are different, instead of asking a much more basic question, which is, are these things different? How? Right? And I am more or less of the opinion that capitalism has always operated like fascism. It's just that we've created this propaganda around it, pretending as though capitalism is somehow like better. And I'm like, all you have to do is observe history. Like, and you don't need to go deep. You just need to take off the blinders, right? You just need to take off the fucking idiot helmet and just be like, what are the actions that America has done while professing to be a capitalist nation? Well, the genocide of the First Nations people, a very successful ethnic cleansing plan, the enslavement of the black population, right? Like literal chattel slavery, resulting in a civil war, right? And let's not forget about during World War II, literally the only country on the planet to drop nukes on civilian populations. Like, and this isn't even talking about like Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya, Yugoslavia, right? The entirety of South America, Africa. Like, what's the difference? Like, I'm not asking that rhetorically. Like, what is the difference? Because anytime anybody stands up and says that capitalism and fascism are different, I'm like, how? Like, they look exactly the same. And anytime they put forth like that 14 signs of fascism list that we've all seen, you can go down that list and be like, every capitalist nation does this. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, so I don't think capitalism has evolved. That what we are witnessing is the full end of any kind of social democracy or socialist idea that has existed in our country, right? That the communists and the socialists under FDR fought hard against this fascist system in order to erect anything that could countervail it, and were enormously successful to a point, right? But because they held on to the one ring of power, they allowed capitalism to survive. Steadily, all of those gains have been eroded away, and now we have an existential threat on our hands, right? Because and that's so. What we are seeing is not capitalism evolving into a new form. We're seeing capitalism return to its base form after an attempt to liberalize it. That's what we're seeing. This is how capitalism has always been. Always. When it was enslaving the black population, it was like this. When it was committing a genocide against the First Nations people, it was like this. When Hitler was using it to gas Jews and communists, it was like this. Right? That anything other than that is a mass struggle from below by communists and socialists. We would do well to not be fooled into believing that there has ever been a period of time outside of a massive struggle by the populace itself. There's never been a moment in time where capitalism has generated anything other than total atrocity. Because that's what it is. It's a demon in the world, right? And we've got to take the ring, go up to Mount Doom, and actually throw the ring in, right? Because the communists and socialists, they got to the top, and instead of throwing the ring in and forcing FDR to actually pass an economic Bill of Rights, transferring the means of production away from the psychopath class, and actually destroying capitalism, they got convinced that, oh, we can use capitalism for ourselves. That this power, they've ceded all of this, we've got all this power now, right? So we can use that power for ourselves. And we see the result of that, right? So this next period of time is going to be extremely dark because socialism is gone, right? The NDP party is dead. Like, there is no Jack Layton's party, like, it's gone, right? That illusion is gone. There's literally the LDP, like the Liberal Democratic Party, and that's allied to the conservatives because there's a neoliberal consensus of complete total destruction. And so there is no socialist party, there is no and like the socialist movement such that it exists is like a smattering of a couple of dozen people, right? And like you go to a climate change rally, you can get like a couple hundred people out, and what do? They just like walk by the halls of power. Climate change. Fucking the people in power don't even watch it. Like, it's so irrelevant to them, they don't care. Right? They've got that handled. They know how to handle that. Right? Yes, we care about climate change. We've got a plan. You wait, in 5 years we'll also miss this plan, like we have 9 times before. Like, we are witnessing not the evolution or the change, but we are witnessing what capitalism always was. That when we talk about unfettered capitalism or removing the chains, any of this libertarian garbage you see, it's like you want to remove the chains off of a dragon. Like, what do you think is going to happen? How do you think it's going to act? Like, and it's going to do exactly as it always has, which is commit atrocities and destroy the place. Extract as much wealth as it possibly can and abandon the populace. That's what it's always done. It's how it's always acted. And you gotta really keep your delusional helmet on, right? You really gotta keep your rose-colored goggles on to think that there's been some other system ever under capitalism. It's always been this way. It's not evolving into something. It's been that way. Kim who? Oh, you're talking about Kardashian? Yeah. George Carlin was right. This planet's going to shake us off like a bad case of fleas. We should just live out the stoned ape theory. I don't actually agree with the stoned ape theory. The stoned ape theory being that it's actually psychedelic drugs that gave us our consciousness. I don't like this theory because I actually think that, like, I think that other animals are more than capable of like experiencing psychedelic experiences, and I think other animals are more sentient than we think, and are more capable than we think, right? Because we're very arrogant and stupid, right? We have a very dumb way of looking at the world, and we listen to these like academics who study the subject who literally own slaves, right? And so they don't view other humans as equal, so of course they don't view animals as at all equivalent, right? I don't buy into this stoned ape theory because I also think that it's a bit trite, frankly. It's a bit like an ape was walking around and he had a psychedelic experience, and then he attained this higher level of consciousness, and then what, all the other apes also had this, and does that transmit sexually from generation to generation? Like, what's the transmission process? Like, so one ape or a group of apes, let's say, have enormous psychedelic experiences together, and expand their consciousness and like have this whole new kind of way of looking at the world, and then they die because that's how it works. And like what? Like the next generation, what are they just born with it? Like how does that actually work? What I think is actually closer to the mark is that given the iterative properties of the Earth, it finally iterated a species that is capable of articulation of enough sound effects to be able to enter an abstract space, right? So like we created a language, and like you look at apes are a great example, right? Apes don't have that the same articulative qualities, right? They have a reduced capacity in this regard, but they do have the capacity to enter the abstract space, and we know this because we've taught them sign language, right? But we taught them that, and we had to invent it first before we taught it to them, so that they could start iterating on it. And what arose first, though, was a complex language that is full of enormous complex thoughts and ideas, like really complex thoughts and ideas that can be reduced into a single word, right? And it takes a lot of time to create such a thing and to pass that on generation by generation. And it's this process of building a language. It's this process of iterating over and over and over again to create languages and mathematics and these sorts of things to enter into an abstract space where we can then iterate and manifest things into reality, right? This is a skill that is unique to humans for as much as we're aware of. And that couples with the fact that we're able to interact with the world in an efficient manner. So like dolphins, for example, maybe they can enter the abstract space with one another. They seem to have a very complex language, right? And maybe they have a very robust and complex society that we're just unaware of because we're pretty thick. And but they don't really have the ability to grab onto shit. So maybe they can have abstract conversations with one another and enter the abstract space, but they can't really do anything about it. Whereas we can and do. And this, to me, is what has separated us from the other animals in significant and major ways. It's not that we all got stoned and had like a big like psychedelic party, which I think like lots of animals can do that. Like that's not unique or interesting. Well, I mean, it's interesting certainly, but it's not unique. But people don't like this idea, I think is what it really comes down to. Like people would rather, like the idea of the stoned ape theory really hits us in our Marvel brain, really hits us in this like, I got bit by a radioactive spider. I got hit by a laser. I went into space and an alien bestowed upon me. A real just like snap moment. We love these. Like the Marvel brain especially really loves just like, and now I've got superpowers, right? We're a big fan of that. And so the idea of like, I picked up a psychedelic mushroom and ate it, and now I've got superpowers, right? It really plays. And people don't really like what I think to be the truth because it reduces us. And I actually, like, it doesn't reduce us, but it elevates everything else, right? Like, you are not actually that different from your dog. Not really. Like, and we don't like that. We don't like to actually say that and admit it. That you're not really that different from a pig or a cow or a horse or a bird, right? You're not really that different, right? You have the same concerns, you've got the same worries, you got the same kind of things that are going on. It's just that we have the ability to enter this abstract space and understand concepts and talk about those concepts and thereby come to realize things in abstract ways, and which other animals don't have. They just don't have that. They don't have the ability to like we know, for example, dogs, right? Dogs actually understand a lot about what's going on, and the more we actually study other animals like cats and dogs and this sort of stuff about this subject, the more we see that, oh, they actually know a lot. And one of my favorite things that I saw fairly recently was, so a cat has a board, and it's a sound board of words, and it can walk over to the board and hit the word that it wants. And there's one button that it presses window, right? So that the person knows it can come over and open up the window, and the cat will go up on the window ledge, right? But that button breaks, so it can't say window. And so what it starts to do is it finds words that are close, and it begins to pair them up in order to articulate window. So it'll say like sun up, right? Up, sun. Because it wants to go up on the ledge and feel the sun, but it can't because the window is closed, right? Like that's entering an abstract space. And we see it happen. We can see it occur. They just don't have the ability to articulate it. Like they lack the base tool, which is the articulative capacity and the articulative ability. And because they lack the capacity entirely, well, you can't generate or build something or change it or improve it or make it better if you don't have it in the first place. And people really don't like this idea, I think, because they don't like the idea of looking at their dog and thinking, yeah, that dog and I are about the same. And I think they are. I think we are. Like, really, I think we are. That if a dog could speak the way we speak, and then you gave dogs, 100,000 years of development and existing in the world, they would create complex languages. They would create a deep understanding of like what's going on. They would understand concepts like death, right? Like we can observe them, communicate them, create written language, create these ideas and articulate these sorts of things. And the reason why they don't is because they can't. And that's it. And like, I actually think there's something beautiful about it because it gives you a sort of deeper compassion, I think, for the rest of life. That you look at it and instead of thinking like, I'm so high and mighty and aren't I so lucky that I, had that, my ancestors had that psychedelic thing, we got superpowers, right? And that we're somehow separated from the species. Like, I think it creates a lot of humility. And it creates this idea of like, I'm, there, but by the will of God go me, right? That we are actually very similar to one another and can understand one another in intrinsic ways. I think that's why we like dogs the most, because dogs get us and we get dogs. Like, they're not, because they're not actually that different from us, really. And I think dogs actually have it worked out a lot, right? Like this concept of what I was like really riffing on before, this idea that we should all suffer and enjoy our suffering. Dogs don't think that. Like, dogs don't think that. If you tried to convince a dog of that, he'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? I have a ball. You want to play with this ball? Hey, you should let me chew on this thing, man. You know what's great? Chewing on stuff. You should let me chew on this thing. Let's go. Right? Like, dogs are always looking for how to enjoy the world and how to be enjoyable in the world, right? They love that. Like, what does every dog do when, like, so you own a dog and you come home? What's it do? It like loses its shit. It's like, yeah, you're here. Let's go. Life's good, right? Like, if dogs had a motto, it would be life's good. And this trap we've fallen into, this idea that life should be bad. Like, no other creature on the planet thinks this way. Like, no other creature on the planet thinks this way. We can be very smart as individuals, but as a collective, we're dumb. Well, and part of it, Ligandese, is that we're not even, like, we don't think we are a collective. So that makes us extra dumb, right? Like, we're walking around saying things like there's no such thing as society. We're walking around saying that kind of dumb shit. We're just individuals, so it's up to the individuals to individualize their individualism. So this ties into how stupid we actually are. Like, we have this unique ability to enter the abstract space, right? And it is a unique ability, insofar as we know. Again, like, maybe the dolphins can, right? Maybe other creatures can, but they don't have the ability to actually interact with their space. And so, so we have this ability to articulate abstract thoughts and enter abstract spaces, and then manifest those abstract thoughts and ideas into the real world. And literally the prevailing ideology for the last 50 years now has been, let's not use it. Let the free market decide. Let chaos reign. Like, excuse me? like, excuse me? Like, you're genuinely telling me that we have this superpower, this ability that we have honed and developed as a species over like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years of iterating and passing the baton down and creating language, and that language changing and shifting and evolving generation by generation by generation, creating a larger tool set, writing the dictionary, writing down all these ideas and concepts, and we just shouldn't use it. Like, to me, that's the absolute core of our stupidity. That I would prefer to live in a society where we were working collectively in the abstract space on something dumb or bad, than living in a society that just refuses to acknowledge that we should use it. Like, come on. Harry Potter and the MCU. That is a cool band name. Once again, thanks, Major. I hate it when it jumps down like that. It's annoying. Social democratic socialists, orthodox Marxists who want to achieve communism via the ballot box should really just read the history of the SPD. Check out how social democracy has worked in the third world. Like, it doesn't happen. I went away for a second. The graphics, are they perspective or explain? Nah, forget about it. I'd legit start a cactus farm and grow dragon fruits if I didn't have to work. Like, I think that this is absolutely the truth. What you just said here, Zorikin, right? Like, there is a young lady who works at the cafe that I go to, and I don't really get to talk to her that often because she's very busy working away, and we're like on the other side of the place, but when I do chat her up, she talks about her life and what she wants to achieve, and she wants to become like the greatest chef on earth. Like, that's really what she wants to do. She wants to go to like literally like samurai shit. Like, she wants to go to like the greatest chefs and learn the culinary arts. So she wants to like go to Japan. She wants to go to China. She wants to go to like Latin America. Like, she wants to go around the world and get all this kind of stuff done. And I have a deep fear in my heart for her that she's not going to attain this goal, because she lives in a society where all of her effort and everything she does gets funneled into into just paying base survival wages and base bills and things like this. And so she literally, like, her life is literally wake up, go to a job, like a full-time job, and then go to another full-time job, go home, sleep, wake up, go to work. Like, it's the definition of grind set. And I look at her and I think to myself, like, we have robbed ourselves. Like, we as a people, as Canadians, are robbing ourselves of the fruits of this person's desires. Like, I believe beyond the shadow of a doubt. Like these capitalist frauds and these hacks and these psychopaths love to say, "Oh, if it wasn't for capitalism, no one would do anything," right? Like that. I can't imagine a larger insult, a more degenerate position, than to say that a human being doesn't have desires, right? And here's this young lady who wants to be the greatest cook in the world. That's what she wants. And is it going to happen? If it does, it will be strictly in spite of the system that she is in. Strictly in spite of it. Not because of it. And we are robbing ourselves of people like this, who are coming into the world with these desires and with these dreams and with all of these hopes that they wish to manifest into the world. And we're losing out on them. We're losing out on them. We're making our society worse by a lot. But it's not incremental. Like this is why incrementalism is actually so offensive to me. Because the destruction is not incremental. Like these incrementalists are looking at a house fire, believing that, well, if we just pat out this particular flame, that'll resolve it. Like, no, bro, no. And like what you're saying here, you'd start a cactus farm and grow dragon fruits. That's fucking amazing. Like, that's fucking amazing. Like, and who knows what kind of odd, strange thing would come out of this. And I think about think about something like the Tiger King, right? This real grotesque freak show that we all experienced fairly recently. Well, what does that guy really want to do? Like really pause and think and like try to put it in like a nice way, right? Here's a guy who just kind of wants to exist in the world and hang out with tigers, man. Like and it's clear that he wants to put together like a zoo, and he clearly wants to bring exotic animals to North America. He clearly wants to have that kind of thing. Well, and where did the problems arise for him? Capitalism. It was always the money. It was always the financial issues. It was always, that's what was getting in the way. And the people critiquing him for his exploitive behavior in regards to the tigers, well, what else could he do? Right? He can't have it both ways, given the system that he operates under. So, and here's a guy who just like, if he was left to it, well, he's going to find a way to go hang out with tigers, man. And he's going to become like a Tiger King. And there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that. But it becomes grotesque. It becomes grotesque because of the nature of capital. And I'm just seeing it clearly over and over and over again. People who want to do good things, people who want to invest their time and energy in improving the world around them in significant ways, and they can't. And they just can't. People go in one way, the world another. At least if we're going to grind endlessly, assisted suicide should be freely available. It's kind of cruel to keep people around. I mean, that's the Canadian solution. We've done that. We have medically assisted dying, right? And one of the things that's definitely happening here in Canada, and I see this pretty clearly, is that because there's medically assisted dying, we're just cutting all of the supports for the elderly or the disabled, right? So the goal here in Canada is now to make life so difficult for the elderly and for the disabled that they'll just choose medically assisted dying. And that's the goal. Like I interact with regularity a trans woman who is disabled, and she talks about this all the time on her Twitter feed, and it's just like I really like, and especially given the recent Nazi apologencia that came out of Canada regarding Ukraine. I definitely think it's what's happening. that like, and I mean, I'm not broken up about it in regards to the elderly. I'm more or less of the opinion that we should be more frank about, like, you can't stay, right? There's no exit strategy, right? Like, you're not. I think we're really childish when it comes to death, frankly. Like, older societies literally took their elderly and sent them out on ice floes and shit. And it's just kind of like, yeah, that's not so bad, eh? Like, I can think of worse ways to go out, right? Like, I don't know, dude. Like, get me hopped up on morphine, right? Like, let's do something fucking wild. Let's go fucking crazy. Like, I don't know what's this romanticizing of like the slow decline. Do you know what I mean? Like this romanticizing of like a literal like skeleton with like flesh, and all they can really do is like lie in bed, and they can't even really get out of bed to like pee or anything anymore. And we're all like, make them comfortable and surround them with pillows and shit. I'm just kind of like, do you think they are going to be here forever? Like, do you think they're genuinely going to like get better or something? And so like, I know for myself, I try to be as like, I used to be I used to be an assistant funeral director, right? I'd like go to crime scenes, and I would go to your grandma's house. I would go to hospitals. Like, I would go to these places and I would see people, and it really formed my opinion. Like, sometimes I would see someone and I would be like, bro, there's no way the last 5 years of your life were any good. Like, there's no way the last 5 years of this person's life were meaningful at all. Right? If anything, they were nothing but a burden to not only the people around them, but to themselves. Like, there's absolutely no way this person was having a good time. Why were they here? What were they accomplishing? And it's just this worship of suffering. That the suffering has got to be the reason, right? Like, that's, meaning in suffering, right? Maybe you should have just got on an ice floe and just pushed yourself out, right? Like, is there something wrong with that? There's no exit strategy here. Like, we all go, and maybe some of us should start. Like, there is a position, there's a profession that you can get into called being a death doula, where you're trying to ease people into this transition of death. But only rich people can afford it, right? And it's like, maybe that should be something we should consider more seriously. Because near as I can tell, all we do is basically just turn a blind eye to it. And like, we don't really talk about it. We don't really try to ease people into it, or to even confront it in a meaningful way, you know? And I'm not going to do that. Like, if I get up to be 90, like, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, another few years of this and I'll definitely get better, heal. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, put like 10 times the lethal dose of morphine in my system and fucking shoot me out of a rocket into space. Let's go. Like, let's go, Brandon, man. Like, well, I don't get it. I don't get why you want to just like wheeze out of existence. You know? But when it comes to the disabled, I think it's brutal. I think it's really brutal what I'm seeing. I think it's torture what we're doing. Like, we could make life a lot easier for disabled people. There's nothing wrong with being just a person who exists in the world. Every other life form exists in the world. We don't worry about it, right? Like, we're just full of anger. Like, that we're just so full of it that the idea that like someone isn't also just grinding their life into this hellish machine that chews everything up offends us. Like, the world system theory divide the world into three spheres: the core world, the semi, the periphery. It's a theory that talks about the dependent as a country. The core, or Western world, still somewhat independent. This is what the wiki. Yeah, dude, this just sounds like first world, third world. The rest of the world focuses on low skill, labor intensive production. Yeah, like the first world wants to be a parasite, right? Like the what is it? The core, right? The core, right? It's the arrogance is built into the language, right? Yeah, like we just do nothing, basically just faff about. Yeah. Not just social democracy, constitutional monarchy in Germany was a representative parliamentary, absolute monarchy, and under threat of the SPD for all sorts of leftist movement. Otto von Bismarck gave socialized healthcare. Wow. Bread Bunny. How's that for a name? Bread Bunny. I love it. Hey, John. Hey, Bread Bunny. Don't think I've ever seen you here. Good to see you. Hopefully you're still around. I've been slow on the chat today, guys. Sorry. I'm a disabled transgender CPTSD survivor. I don't know what CPTSD means. Survivor living under the poverty line. I've seen all your live streams twice for almost a year now. Wow. I just want to say you've helped me and inspired me so much. Your stream has become my comfort show. Thank you for that. Oh, thank you for that. You know, sometimes I fall into a real sense of nihilism, you know? Like, what is the point of any of this? What are we even doing here? I try to believe, and I do believe, that we are part of a larger system. A system that has a larger understanding of itself and that we play a part in that. I try to remind myself of the truth of that. But I'm a human too, you know, and my narrow view can take center stage, and I know that's the truth. And your comments really touched me, because it's reminded me that I'm reaching out and I'm connecting with people and I don't even really know it, you know? I don't even really realize it. And even though sometimes this feels senseless or pointless, that it isn't. That it isn't. Sometimes I feel like I'm just bitching, you know? But I'm just trying to be a little light, just trying to keep the flame alive, just trying to make it so that this doesn't go out. And just hoping that this little flame will catch, and more people will begin to catch, and before we know it, there's an honest-to-God flame going on. And if I can make it so that even one person feels as though they're not alone, This last month's been a hard one. It's been a hard one. I thought that the lead up to 1,000 subscribers was going to be hard, but it's turned out to be the other way. That I really wonder, like, what am I really achieving here? What am I really getting here? What am I really doing here? And it's because I get caught in that capitalist way of thinking, which is, if I'm not making a lot of money doing it, if it's not being monetarily successful, then it doesn't succeed. It doesn't have a point. And that all is tied into just how fucking ridiculous the rent is, and how ridiculous all of that is. But all I'm really trying to do here is tell the truth, find out what the truth is, and if someone can show me that what I'm saying is not the truth, then I'll change my tune. I'm not interested in being that person who defends a position that is wrong because I was defending it. I'd rather tell the truth. And sometimes that's grim and difficult to hear. And sometimes it's hard. But we're doing it together. We are not alone. Even though we live in a society and we live in a system that is trying very hard to make us feel alone. The classic strategy of the gaslighter, of the con man, is to isolate. Is to make it so that you feel you don't have another option. To give you no alternative, but their alternative. And here we are, together, flouting them, showing them that there are alternatives and we are not alone. And if you're not careful, we might actually take the place over. Or at least do a significant amount of damage on our way out. So thank you for your comment, Bread Bunny. That was very kind. That one got me right in the heart. And that's really what I needed today. It's a little something in the heart. Oh. Little downbeat. Why not? That's why people keep tuning in. You never know what you're going to get out of this place. You never know what's coming next. Well, glory be and mercy me. It's Bumbleguppy. And Ward as well. This is a truly blessed day. Bumbleguppy, I think about you all the time, bud. I'm glad to see you came back around. Well, how about that? Wouldn't the map be more the Anglosphere more particularly? I mean, Russians are kind of white. That map seems the legacy of England, like Europe is the legacy of Rome, maybe. We're seeing capitalism return to its base after attempting to liberalize it. Well, thank you, sir. Yeah, you're right. No, except white people don't really view Russian white people as white people, right? Like we used to think that like Polish people and Irish people were like a lesser species, and we only really formed up on this idea of white people to stand against black people and Hispanic people, right? We don't really view Russian people like they're white, but they're Asiatic white, right? That really is it does seem to have that kind of way about it. It's good to see you here, bud. Nobody actually believes the Stone Ape theory. It's just a nice story, kind of like the Bible. Yeah. Sorry, when I got on, it was the slap heard around the world Oscars image. I love you too, Victini. Thanks, guy. Yeah. Here you go, John. Here's something to cheer you up. You gotta share it, right? Oh, God, the bread is coming back. Gotta get the bread hat. Oh, my God. Loaf is in the chat. Bumbleguppy's in the chat. Victini's in the chat. You're all hitting me with the bread. Gotta get the bread scepter with the bread hat. Oh, my God. It's coming. You watch. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. Yeah, Slavs weren't considered white like Irish and Italians, exactly. Good to be back. My wife suffered oh my goodness, suffered a major stroke, so we've been working her rehab together. It's been transformative. Her recovery is remarkable. Even the docs are surprised. Well, how about that? Bumbleguppy? I'm sorry to hear that happened, but man, a bounce back like that? Man. I'm glad that you came back to share that, friend. I am. You know, one of the things that I struggle with, and I have been struggling with it, is like I watch other YouTubers, right? And everybody's got a kind of like wonka wonka, like honka honka, like infographics and like zoop zoop and like sound effects, and everything's very bright and colorful and all that. And that's just not what I'm ever going to do, I don't think. Which of course gets me caught in the whole cycle of doubt of like, is that going to work? Is that going to? But you know what? I don't care about any of that. I don't. It's tempting to do, because I think it's a cheap way to keep people's attention. And that's really what this is about, right? It's about keeping people's attention. But I keep saying and keep believing and keep moving toward the idea that we're trying to make a space here to talk about humanity and to dwell in people's humanity and to do the opposite of filling the air with noise and chatter. To slow down. To feel the silences together. To feel each other's energy and to feel each other in this time. And while we're not together physically, that we can be together anyway. And to share our sorrows and to share our sadnesses and to share our successes with one another. She literally threw her cane away just like a Christian revival meeting, but with less hypocrisy. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Oh, Rob, that's lovely. I want to leave an impact on life that you've left. I'm so glad you read my comment. Thank you, John. Please, one day when I get $1, I'd love to join the Discord. Oh, Bread Bunny. If you send me an email, and you should be able to get to my email through my YouTube, you just send me an email and I'll get you in, okay, Bread Bunny? That's the funny thing about North American white supremacists like Stefan Molyneux. They don't know how much about history of Europe and say it's white history and trace their lineage back to all of them and think that a united Europe, even though all of these tribes have been united against each other, yeah. We don't have MTV attention spans. I dig this format. Yeah. I do too, you know. I do too. There's something really nice about it. Just being able to... No, Bread Bunny, thank you. Thank you. I think a lot of it is that, like, I grew up on the internet and with the internet. Like, I was, like, literally first generation. Like, I saw the internet come to life. I was interacting with it. I was growing up with it and coming to it. And I witnessed it expand and grow and shift and change. But I feel like the ethos of the internet, the subject matter changed, but it didn't actually grow up. Oh, thank you, Rob. That, like, it used to just be like pirating music and video games and mushroom badger videos, you know, like Strong Bad, you know, just cartoons and shit, really. And, like, there were, you know, Reddit existed and, like, all of these, like live journals and all this. But all of it was very childish. And then the internet very quickly expanded. And as it expanded, though, it maintained that kind of childishness. That there is, like, adult... Like, there's not many spaces where adults can just be adults and have adult conversations. And act the way that I think adults do act. With a little bit more dignity and aplomb and calmness. And and that we're all supposed to be caught up in like this whirlwind, I suppose. And there's constantly this like thronging. You played Muds and had dial-up. Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. You remember the sound? You remember the sound? Somebody picked up the phone, totaled everything. Checked your email, is nothing. Your YouTube page. Ah, well, hell. Here. I'll do it. I don't give a shit. Hit me there. Yes, I just doxed myself or whatever the fuck you want to say. I don't give a shit. Anybody can send me anything. John, I was 36 in 2000 when I first connected with AOL Internet. To me, social media feels like a 3x5 card notes on a laundromat cork bulletin board. Yeah, no shit, eh? No, dude, like, the, social media is like, I fucking cannot stand Twitter, dude. Like, anytime I go on Twitter, I just feel like it's like people doing like drive-by slaps the way Will Smith like slapped Chris Rock, right? Like it's just a constant, just like smack, smack, smack. And people like go out on their balcony and be like, hear ye, people of the Twitterverse. And it's just like, it's like every so often you do get like interesting sort of stuff like this, but I really feel like it's just like, oh sure, here, let's go through these quickly. What did I have? Yeah, the NDP suck. Their dental plan sucks. People are by a 2-to-1 margin. Public thinks it will be good rather than bad for Canada. So Canadians are fucking stupid as shit. Oh yeah, it's a great thing that we're capitulating power to the neoliberal death cult. Super cool. Oh yeah, total failure. Liberals are buying jets. Oh, fertilizer cost doubles. That's certainly not going to be a problem. Nuclear reactors. Ontario Liberal NDP deal is bound to happen if June's election delivers a minority. Waka waka. Okay. So, yeah. India will drop the dollar to trade with Russia, replacing SWIFT. That's pretty huge news, frankly. Like, trading with Russia in the ruble and also the renminbi, right? Pretty big deal, pretty big fallout from this whole situation. You've got NATO war media writes about but doesn't listen to Mariupol residents. Ukrainian army threw us out of our homes to take firing positions, old people and kids. They locked families in the basements and abandoned them. The Russian troops rescued us. They are our brothers.
Кто вам помог выбраться, расскажите? Помог выбраться, кто?
Российские ребята помогли нам выбраться с подвала. И как они с нами обращались, слышите? Они нам это самое, как родные братья. Они...
You're seeing more and more videos coming out about this, by the way. I'm seeing almost one a day now, where you're having the citizens of Mariupol. Mariupol was liberated by the Russians over the weekend. So Mariupol has been, is where the Azov battalion was situated, right? That's the Nazi battalion. And they were destroyed and captured by the Russians. And you're seeing now daily videos coming out of citizens coming out of Mariupol. And the citizens are coming out of Mariupol. And the narrative is universal. That the citizens of Mariupol were taken hostage by the Ukrainian military forces there, the Nazis there. And there's always stories like this. Children getting tied to poles, people being abandoned underneath basements. I saw a story where they found a woman tortured to death with Nazi swastikas carved into her flesh, right? Like, you're hearing these horror stories coming out of Mariupol, and it's universal. The narrative is from the people who have been liberated from Mariupol. I can show you video after video after video of this, that they were held hostage by Nazis who refused to let them leave under threat of being shot. And now the Russians have come in and freed these people of that. Like, this is becoming black and white. This is becoming pretty straightforward. That, like, the citizens of Mariupol certainly are not unhappy with what's going on. Twitter, Reddit suck now. It's capitalized. I predicted in 2016 that people won't tolerate censorship. They will instead make the internet unusable with spamming BS. Yeah, there's that. No, the new censorship that's going to sweep through Bumbleguppy will be the internet. What's being pitched at us as Internet 3.0. That's going to be the end of it. Because right now, if a site like Reddit, for example, censors too much or too hard, people just move over to like Lemongrad or something, or like Rumble or whatever. That there are new things that can pop up. But now the idea behind Internet 3.0 is that you can actually own the infrastructure of the internet itself, which means that you can always remove anything you like. So like a site like Lemongrad, which is a leftist sort of bastion for people who want to actually not be censored on these leftist ideas, it just simply won't exist, right? That the only sites that will be permitted to exist will be a site like Reddit, which will itself be highly regulated. And that's the future of all of this. They're just going to, like, they're going to destroy the internet. They're going to make it no longer usable, or it'll be usable, but it'll be mainly for financial transactions. It'll just be a new form of, it'll just be a new market system, really. And any kind of news or communications that occurs over it will be tightly regulated. And the places that they want to destroy, they'll just destroy. And that's what's coming for the internet. Does this sub ban you for being a tanky? Do you mean this channel? No. The YouTube's position, I think, and of course I've had to suss this. I haven't actually talked anything. Thanks, Bread Bunny. I'll get back to you at the end of the stream. Does this sub ban you for being a tanky? I think that YouTube understands that if they start banning people who are doing what I'm doing, that I do just go somewhere else. And they have seen that happen. And I think they understand, like, they don't know where the culture is going necessarily. Like, they don't really know where the culture is going. And if they start banning people, they could find themselves on the losing end of that equation, right? And so I think YouTube's general policy, they have definitely taken a stance against what they have called misinformation, and they are definitely prioritizing certain voices more than others. So, for example, whenever I search for anything on YouTube and find lectures and all this kind of stuff about a subject, it will always send me over to Jon Stewart or Seth Meyers. It'll always funnel me in that direction every single time. If I'm watching like a Jimmy Dore video, well, it doesn't fire me into another Jimmy Dore video, right? It sends me over to Seth Meyers or Jon Stewart. And I have to actually go and continue watching Jon Stewart. That really started to happen in the COVID environment, where I think YouTube itself was struggling with the idea of misinformation and was beginning to see itself as large enough to need to actually have a position on this. And I don't. The algorithm tends to lean right, yet the society tends to lean right. That's something else that's actually true. Is that? Oh, can I turn it off? Oh, yeah, I'm learning something new every day. I think the society leans right is the thing. Like, I don't. Yeah, capitalism favors monetary engagement. It's the nature of the beast. Look, the algorithm only cares about one thing: what keeps you watching. That's all it cares about. It doesn't. The algorithm is apolitical in the truest sense of the word, right? It is amoral. It doesn't have an opinion. It literally just asks the question, what's going to keep this person watching? What is this person watching? What are they going to keep watching? And any success on the scale that we're talking about, like YouTube being the scale that it is, with billions and billions of views and millions of videos and all this kind of stuff, they can't sift through this stuff. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the capability. It would cripple them to try. So all it does is it create, like, the algorithm goes through a video. It creates a series of tags to be like, oh, okay, well, this video is talking about this, and this. And this type of person, like, you are watching a video that shares these tags, right? And so we're going to show you this. And there are certain channels and certain concepts that are considered reputable. YouTube has implemented this. And so what that means by default is that the reputable places are the places the algorithm will take you to, whereas the people who have not been considered reputable, and I'm not saying they've taken a stamp and said unreputable, just that you're not considered reputable, right? So by default, you're lower on the algorithm chain, right? So it's censorship, but it's not direct censorship, right? It's just every time the algorithm has an option to show you something, it's going to show you one of these. Jon Stewart, Seth Meyers, right? You're always going to get these. And you've got to actually go out of your way to find these. And you can get around it. Like, there are ways to get around it. You can actually request them to stop showing you these things, right? And yeah, remember Twitter couldn't flag Nazis algorithmically because it would flag conservative types as well? Yeah. I remember that, dude. I remember that. But and also, like, you get into interesting questions. So it's like, well, if people are talking about killing people, well, maybe they're talking about a video game, right? So you can't really censor words like kill or any of that kind of stuff because that like, and that's actually true. Like, so there's broader senses of censorship that become difficult to handle. And again, there is so much fucking content. And I tend, especially as I get older, I tend to think that the way we have the internet is structured is not necessarily healthy for us. That it's not really good that you can be on the internet and you are like that you're a ghost, basically. Like, I do think that you, like, if you're gonna say the shit that you're gonna say, people should know it's you. Like, I think that's just true. I think that's something that I have come to believe in. When I was younger, I was more like, no, man, like, freedom and all, like I should be on it. But no, I'm older now, and I'm like, look, if you're gonna go around and espouse like Nazi apologetics, right? You people should be able to be like, oh, that's what you think, eh? Okay, buddy. Like, there should be consequences for your fucking actions. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. The algorithm, I think, so for example, like, Jordan Peterson's a great example of this, right? That, like, I have to go out of my way to be like, stop recommending me Peterson stuff. Like, I don't want to see this. And at first, my gut was, oh, the algorithm is really, like, it's programmed for this. But the reality is that the reason why I keep getting funneled into Peterson stuff, or kept for a long time, was because it was popular. And that's it. So I would watch something that was about politics, right? Or maybe about existence or any of that kind of like philosophical sort of stuff. And then Peterson would get funneled into. And I don't think it's sinister. Like, I mean, I don't think it's any more sinister than the structure of the system itself. It's just, I think it's popular. And right-wing content tends to be more popular. And it tends to be more popular for exactly the reasons you think it is. It's touchdowns and big tits and exploding cars and guns and exciting shit. Extended episode. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. There's no rules. I can do what I want, Victini. It's my goddamn channel. I'll do what I goddamn want. God damn it. Well, we've got, and Bubble Guppy's back, and Ward is in the chat, and Bread Bunny just said a lovely thing to me, and I don't know. I feel like sticking around for a little bit. Yeah, so I just, and that's kind of a sad reality, or a sad realization, I suppose, is that I think there are some things that are, but even you think about Jon Stewart, right? Like, am I getting funneled into Jon Stewart because he's like an accredited source and like all that kind of stuff? Or am I getting funneled into Jon Stewart because he's popular, right? And he has reason to be popular. His stuff is good, right? His domestic stuff is good. His foreign affairs stuff is trash. Oh, my favorite Canadian show. Isn't that nice? That's so nice. You make sure you guys tell everybody I exist. Everybody tell somebody I exist. If people are looking for new television, right? A new thing. You bring people in here, man. It's the interaction that's the best part, if you ask me. But John, I keep being told that YouTube is left-wing media. Yeah, but I think that a right-winger would say that of YouTube, and I would. And it goes the other way too. Like, I'm a leftist and I think that it's fairly right-wing, right? So, but what that tells you is that YouTube's probably striking a pretty decent balance, right? Because the society itself is probably pretty well balanced, right? And if you're on the right, then of course you think YouTube's to the left. And if you're on the left, of course you think YouTube's to the right, right? Because it's probably fairly balanced. Because the purpose of the algorithm is to be correct most of the time, right? So you want to strike a good average. You're not trying to appeal to people on the right. You're not trying to appeal to people on the left. You're trying to appeal to a sort of broad base that creates a kind of consensus understanding. And you're willing to show people on the left right-wing content, and you're willing to show people on the right left-wing content because it hits your wheelhouse. So a big one is like the Gravel Institute. The Gravel Institute's the Gravel Institute's stuff where they like outed the funding of Nazis and the Nazis that exist in Ukraine, right? Well, that video swung through right-wing channels, right? And lots of right-wingers have seen that now. Because it pertains to their interest, right? And I feel like, I think it really just does come down to the fact that it's popular, and that's it. That it's not being suggested because the algorithm is going, and then I'll make you think this way. I really, really am convinced, as I use it and as I interact with the algorithm more, with minor exceptions. Like, I do think that like if you go to YouTube, there is like a bar that is straight up just like CBC and CTV News, right? But I'm actually fine with that. Like, I'm fine with seeing what the normies have to think about that kind of stuff. And I know it's state and corporate media. Like, I understand that. And I'm more or less okay with that. But outside of that, I really do think like the goal of the algorithm is just to keep you watching. That's all it wants. It doesn't want you to click off and go somewhere else. It doesn't want you to think, I don't really like, I'm not really finding anything, or I'm not really enjoying what's coming forward. I'm not really digging it, so I'm gonna go try something else. That it doesn't want that at all. Like, that's the thing it's trying to avoid the most. is this statement, I'm just going to get off YouTube and try something else. It wants you to watch. And so it's always going to show you things that it thinks you'll be interested in. And sometimes people rage watch stuff, right? I've had like 15 partners in the last year. I showed every one of them your show. It was one of them that introduced me. Well, isn't that nice? Also, 15 partners. Bread Bunny. You. Look at you. I'm jealous. Just think of all the ad impressions, John. We all know what's really important. Yeah, I hope so. I hope I'm doing this monetization thing correctly. I don't know. Have you guys noticed any ads coming up or anything like this? I don't know. I'm terrible when it comes to this kind of stuff, honestly. Like, I'm very bad when it comes to that kind of stuff. And yeah, so I think that YouTube is striking a pretty good balance. I think they're trying to. I don't think that I've actually been fairly impressed by them through this big censorship period. I think that the things that they have censored have not been their choice. That it's been the government, and it's been them just having to adhere to legislation that's been forced upon them. I think that that's definitely true. That I think if it was up to YouTube, more or less, they would just let the algorithm do it, like, just keep people watching. No ads yet, but you started showing up in my suggested videos now. That's new. Oh, that's nice. It is nice. Being bad at exploiting people's attention to shove ads at them is actually a quality character trait. Well, when you put it that way, bud, when you put it that way. It's probably ads on the reruns. They usually don't insert ads into live feeds. Okay. Oh, yeah. Eric's keeping me on task. Canadian consumer confidence falls to 14th month low on inflation. No surprises there. Disastrous Roger Shaw buyout approved by CRTC. Yeah, that's going to be helpful. The CRTC described the deal as in the public interest. Get completely fucked. Oh, yeah. So this is actually really informative. I won't show the video because we're well over, but that's okay. Former CIA officer Mike Baker on Ukraine and Putin. There was one moment here.
I'd say the command staff, the intelligence is the border with Ukraine, and it was in double digits.
It's not good.
It's not good. But it's, look, if you step back, everybody's thinking, okay, how did this fucked up situation happen? Well, it's been building, obviously, right? I mean, how much news coverage did we have of, well, they're adding more troops to the border with Ukraine. Wonder what they're doing. Could it be military exercises? So there was a tremendous amount of speculation leading up to what the fuck is going on, which, in a sense, points to how lacking the intelligence is.
So, Mike Baker, who they call former CIA officer Mike Baker. You're never former CIA. So this guy's a spook who's going on the Joe Rogan Experience. And even in the comments of this clip, everybody was saying, like, this guy just said nothing. Like, he just said a whole bunch of nothing about the situation, right? Here's how you know that what the CIA is running with this kind of stuff is a bit of a grift. And I shouldn't say a bit of a grift. It's very much a grift. Here's how you know. The current head of the CIA, okay? His name is William Burns, right? He used to be the ambassador to Russia, okay? This is so great, dude. This is so great. It's so nice to dunk on spooks, man. I love doing it. It's like one of my favorite things to do. He writes an article or a document or something, whatever you want to call it, called Nyet Means Nyet. Russia's NATO enlargement red lines. Okay? So created 2008, released 2011. Okay? So the Russian ambassador, currently the head of the CIA, writes this. It gets leaked by WikiLeaks, right? And in it, William Burns, back in 2009, is writing, or back in 2008 rather, is writing, what we are doing is going to lead to a war with Russia. That Russia is being very clear about its enlargement red lines. It's being very clear that the things we're doing in Ukraine are unacceptable. This is going to lead to a conflict with Russia. That's the Russian ambassador and the current head of the CIA, the head director of the CIA, William Burns. And here's Mike Baker, former CIA agent, Mike Baker, going on the most popular podcast in the world, 11 million viewers. It's like 3 times more than any news station gets. Tucker Carlson's the next one. He gets 3 million. Right? So former CIA officer Mike Baker goes on and he basically says, yeah, we don't, how do you get intel on Russia, you know? It's so tough. It's so tough getting intel on Russia, you guys. And, you know, we don't really know what's going on or what their objectives are, you know, here and so they're just playing dumb, right? They're just playing dumb. And how do we know the CIA is playing dumb on this issue? Because literally the head director of the CIA, while he was the Russian ambassador, said in a document that you can read. You can read this document. You can read it. He says, Russia's opposition to NATO membership for Ukraine and Georgia is both emotional, based on perceived strategic concerns about the impact on Russia's interests in the region. And he just goes on like that. So they know. They know, and they know what role they've played in this conflict, and they know what they were doing, and they knew what they were doing. What more intel do you need than from the fucking Russian ambassador? Right? If you're not going to listen to what the Russian ambassador has to say about the situation, then why did you send him? Why do you even have an ambassador? What's the point of sending this guy to be the Russian ambassador? And what makes it even juicier, this is the best part about this, is that this guy, William Burns, is the perfect figure for right now, right? Literally the ambassador to Russia is currently the head director of the CIA. And nobody knows about him. Nobody talks to him. He's not on any news stations. He doesn't go anywhere. He's not being interviewed by Joe Rogan. Instead, they're sending this dumbass so he can go, finding intel on Russia is pretty tough, Pretty tough to get intel on Russia, except the fucking literal fucking Russian ambassador. Oh, it kills me, man. It kills me. The only thing that gives me hope about that is that the comment section on this was very much wonka 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 with fucking Baker. Mike Baker just wonka 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 wonka. So even though they didn't know why, the comment section didn't know the depth of how fucking ridiculous this fucking idiot is. They were pretty aware the whole time that he was wanking them. So, just unfucking believable, dude. We already did that. Oh yeah, Fidel Castro's war ended apartheid, right? There's a great video for you if you wanna get in. We're just gonna go through. Oh yeah, scientists find microplastics in blood for the first time. Isn't that great? Isn't that fun? Right? Like, we're literally getting plastic. Where's it going in your body? Can it be eliminated, excreted? Or is it retained in certain organs, accumulating maybe? Or is it even able to pass the blood-brain barrier? Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe we all have fucking plastic in our brains. You ever think about this? And we're just getting like fucking plastic dug into our skulls. Ugh. Any doubt has been removed. The Biden administration's goal is not to mitigate conflict in Ukraine, but further inflame it, rejecting ceasefire negotiations, dumping vast amount of weapons, engineering more NATO expansion, threatening to send troops, and now even threatening to depose Putin, which, by the way, they've walked back on that. That one's just some dementia shit. Yeah, Russia and China moved to unseat the dollar as the number one currency, right? This is all about the renminbi, and even how China is starting to return to a gold standard as a way to undercut the dollar. Like, they're not just going to let this keep happening, right? This absurd... Oh yeah, this beautiful. Never forget. Laura Ingraham, fucking Nazi. What if we just cut off the unemployment? Hunger is a pretty powerful thing. They only feed a military dog at night because a hungry dog is an obedient dog. Well, if we are not causing people to be hungry to work, like, these people are psychopaths, right? Like, what? I don't know what we need anymore. Fresh poll shows Biden's approval rating decline as 71% of Americans think country is on wrong track. Big fucking spread. We'll all vote him in and then push him to the left, and that'll happen. Yeah, we'll push Biden to the left. That's real. The left. Is it strange that my interests align with corporate media, big tech, government, the wealthy elite, and big pharma? No, that's just a coincidence. I'm still anti-establishment. Yeah, Ontario's latest corporate handouts come at the expense of workers and their health. Like, we know. And then, a good one from the Jacobin. I'm going to save this one for tomorrow. Yeah, I'm going to save this one for tomorrow. Might actually read this one. Lots of good information here. Lots of good information. A really balanced article. Plastic building up in our bodies has been known about, hidden by capitalists for decades. Look up PFAs. Oh my God. EPA is committed to providing meaningful, understandable, and actionable information on PFAs. The PFAs are widely used, long-lasting chemicals, components. Garbage. All right, guys. I'm well over time. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy. The billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the vain hope that you won't realize it. And just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.